All right, good evening and welcome to tonight's meeting of the Lunenburg Select Board. Today is Tuesday, October 22nd. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. In accordance with the requirements of the open meeting law, please be advised that this meeting is being recorded and broadcast live over the Lunenburg Public Access channel, on Facebook Live on the Public Access Facebook page, and will be uploaded to the Lunenburg Access YouTube channel after the meeting. The agenda lists all the topics which may be discussed at the meeting and are those reasonably anticipated by the chair. Votes may be taken as a result of these discussions. Not all items listed may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may also be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by the open meeting law.
Recording in progress.
We're going to begin tonight with public comments. Are there any public comments from the board?
None.
I would just wish Mr. Terenzini a happy birthday. I can tell by that face that he didn't want me to do this, but today is in fact his birthday. I'm sure there's no other place he would rather be tonight than with us here at the Lunenburg Select Board, so we'll try to make it as good as we can.
He's very lucky, since we don't want to pay royalties, we won't sing you the song.
Yeah. No, we're not.
Probably other reasons why we shouldn't either, but we'll go with that one.
Thank
Happy
you, kind
birthday.
sir.
Happy birthday, Carter. All right, are there any public comments from the public? Mr. Bowen?
Don't worry, I'm not reading all this. It's just this. Hi, John Bowen, 162 Highland Street. I'm with Jean Marie Price. She's not here tonight, but I would like to first open with a praise for this board's direction with your, I guess you could call it a ratification of your direction in your goals meeting, particularly the matters that include employees and how they are treated in this town, and the steps forward for a better process which respects the people who provide a much-needed service to this community. In addition, these goals, modified of course, should also apply toward residents of this town. We also need the same application of these types of measures in order for us to be able to acquire and retain good volunteers and good elected officials, ones with integrity as well as commitment. That means that we should basically be evaluating each other. This brings to why I'm before you this evening. Our Cemetery Commission has not met since July 25th, 2024, due to the chairperson, Nancy Fosiasko, having a personal matter. My understanding, there is not a plan to have a meeting anytime soon, even though Vice Chair Dave Doran and Member Michael Clark would make a quorum on that committee for conducting our cemetery's business. This is a problem. However, it does showcase what I have been mentioning all along, that Nancy Yasko is the Cemetery Commission and not the board, and that David Doran is a rubber stamp. Our cemetery has serious issues that need to be addressed, and it is not happening. On July 29th, Heather Lemieux emailed the chairperson, Ms. Fosiasko, and CC'd this board, expressing her dissatisfaction with Ms. Yasko's responses. I quote, she stated, Nancy Yasko said, I have been in the dark over this situation, quoted by Heather Lemieux, which Nancy tried to explain away before the Finance Committee a few weeks ago, which brings me to why I'm before you when I heard that information. This email is scathing. Okay, she should be focusing on, and Heather said that she should not be focusing on the height of the grass and what Todd Holman is doing in the cemetery, and focus on the matters of the cemetery that are of primary importance for this town, like the West Street Terrace cemetery and the eminent domain issue that exists there. That's going to take time. That will take a warrant article as well as roughly about 18 months of time to resolve, between getting a surveyor and everything else, getting money and so on and so forth to be able to execute the eminent domain, having the lawyers look it over, having the lawyers file, but this is a lot of work. I have not even scratched the surface with what I have just mentioned, okay? We have 70 plots left in the cemeteries. This is another process of 18 months to get money as well, through warrant articles as well as work that needs to be done in the North Cemetery. 70 graves, that's it. Okay, we have no warrant articles presented. We have nothing being done for 4 months. Lastly, it was mentioned to Nancy Yasko, who invokes your name, Mr. Chairman and Mr. Vice Chairman. She does this constantly. who at this time, she is being sued by the cemetery superintendent, and I have the lawsuit here for defamation of character. I acquired this through the public record because I do receive a lot of the court dockets for the day with some of the work that I do on the side. Basically, what I'm trying to say, okay, in conclusion, is let's get our cemetery business done. Ms. Forciasco should resign for this action of defamation. It's on recorded tapes from these meetings as well as in depositions, I'm sure, that will come forthcoming with this lawsuit. She has done nothing but lie to this community, not only lie to this community, but bring shame here. I would just like to say that our former town manager affirmed all these things I'm saying in an email. And I've tried to communicate this to the community, but I hope now you understand I'm making sense. I'm telling you who Nancy Yasko is as an elected person and who Dave Doran is on that committee, okay? And how this town voted that the wrong people to be able to handle our cemeteries. And I'm excluding Michael Clark, because Michael Clark was just elected this year. And I wait to see where is our quorum. But I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Bowen. Are there any other public comments? Mrs. Lockwood.
Good evening. Sorry. I'm going to be reading most of my public comment. I'm here today to address some of the comments that were made last week on the meeting in a couple of different topics. Regarding Marshall Park funding, Mr. Alonso, you said $5.2 million that I'm hearing about it tonight. I only found out about the cost of the project in the newspaper. I don't watch every board meeting. I don't have time to. No one has time to. Again, no runaway to people to get people set on this. There were extensive conversations and planning with the previous town manager about this project and the funding timeline starting back in March 2023. The fact that you don't know the details, it's on you. If you don't have time to watch all meetings, your board can assign liaisons to committees. You had an employee who reported to you, the town manager, that you could have also asked for updates. And by the way, the Parks Commission didn't post their RFP to the newspaper. Your employee did. As a select board member, if you don't have time to keep abreast of a project that has been happening in town for 4 years and has had 3 different town meeting votes, by the way, the votes were positive, perhaps you don't have the necessary time to serve in this position. You may not think what you're doing to other boards and commissions is gaslighting, but it is. Accusing them of not providing you with information because you don't know all the information, or the information is not served to you on a platter, is gaslighting. At the most basic level, you can ask your questions to employees that report to you before making statements that aren't true. Regarding the SAP changes proposed by Mr. Toranzini, last week's meeting, Mr. Alonso said that there isn't enough runway or time to understand the changes in order to support Mr. Toranzini's proposed changes to the SAP. You also mentioned that we don't have a personnel committee. It's true. At the Springtown meeting of 2022, the Personnel Committee presented changes to the SAP that included proposal to offer holiday and sick pay to part-time employees. However, Mr. Alonso, at that time, you introduced 2 amendments at the town meeting, which essentially gutted the work that the Personnel Committee did that year. There's a significant difference between speaking for or against an article at town meeting and introducing an amendment that completely disregard the work that other groups of volunteers have done spent the entire year working on it. Unsurprisingly, we don't have a personnel committee. How you express support or opposition for the work that other volunteer group in town has a direct impact on how people feel and their willingness to continue serving. Put it simply, your use of your position in ways that disrespect the work of your colleagues, both staff and volunteers on other boards, has created an environment that makes it extremely difficult to recruit members for other boards. The modifications proposed by Mr. Toranzini to the SAP are essential. As Mr. Jeffries mentioned, common sense. Many of those elements were specifically raised by employees in the listening sessions. One of the most significant ones, where they offered the sick pay to part-time employees, was a town meeting that was worked on by the Personnel Committee in 2022. There is no need to further discuss this issue. I want to also bring your attention to how you conduct yourselves in these meetings have a direct impact on our employees. That was a feedback that you received during listening sessions. In particular, last week when Ms. Emeke asked Mr. Alonso to at least consider merit pay, his response was nothing short of disrespectful. Please, Mr. Alonso, watch that part of the meeting and again ask yourself, how should town employees feel about their requests after watching your replying and seeing your body language to their idea? An idea that I will add was the same idea that Mrs. Moore brought up as a goal during the goal session. So, blocking a town meeting solution to a problem, making the personnel committee impossible to recruit for, and then using the absence of a personnel committee as a reason why action can be taken to solve those problems right now sounds pretty close to insane to me. But that's me. In short, I think we need more progress in town. The new high school was a result of a determined, diligent school committee that began back in 2004. When people work together in a constructive, collaborative, and persistent manner, good things get done. But on so many things, Lunenburg has been stuck the past 20 years. We watched the old primary deteriorate and become uninhabitable. Now, 12 years after the TCP building ceased to function as a school, much of it has become inhabitable too. Unlike the schools, town leaders have failed to come together around shared goals and work together to do the steps needed to overcome the obstacles along the way. For Lunenburg to execute on any positive vision, we need leaders who can work collaborative with others. They need to be good co-workers to those on their boards, to staff, and volunteers on other boards, along with residents in town. Leaders need to be judicious, but not domineering. It must specifically respect the work of their colleagues. When relationships and trust between them doing the work, the town breaks down so much, the decisions that need to be made to move forward don't get made. The work doesn't get done, and the town stops functioning, even in the most basic level. So thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Lockwood. Are there any other public comments from the public?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a public comment.
Sure.
I think that what I want to offer is, I was writing some notes, and I think it's important for us to strive for civility, but democracy is messy. Elected officials are not immune from criticism, but we are not vessels of perfection. I think that we always, in all the criticism that we offer, and that's provided, and that is fair. I think that we have free speech for a reason. I certainly respect it. I've absorbed criticisms directed towards me. But I just want to respond to some of I want to react and just say that I get it, that sometimes, and I don't want to take away from anyone else's truth, but I want to encourage all of us that as we offer criticisms of elected officials, to be mindful that, I have pretty thick skin. I think most people know that. But, when you are elected, it doesn't suddenly make your thin thicker. That we're all still humans. People still go home and have personal feelings about the comments that are said about them, whether they're on this board or on another board. And at the end of the day, we also want to encourage other people to volunteer. So I just want to positively encourage positive criticism that has a clear goal, an end state that's achievable.
All right, thank you. Any other public comments? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to announcements. I have two. Yard waste this year, fall dates, begins this Saturday, October 26th. It's 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. for all Saturdays up to December 14th, excluding Thanksgiving week. It is at the landfill on 27 Youngs Road. You can bring leaves, grass, easily raked materials, no plastic bags, stumps, or household garbage. And special town meeting is November 12th, Tuesday, November 12th at 7 PM at the middle high school. All right, are there any other announcements? Communications from other boards, I don't have any. Does anyone else?
I do. We have a request from the Agricultural Commission to come before us on the 4th of November. They believe that they can provide the update under communications from other boards. They just want to make the board aware of a handful of things, and I will give a community report related to them as
Okay.
well. But that, again, they're looking for in the meeting on the November the 4th and trusting that it will fit within communications. from other boards.
Yep, we have it on the agenda for that reason.
All right.
All right, cool.
The 4th is a Monday.
I may have said the date wrong. The
The
first,
5th?
yeah, the
Yes.
first meeting in
5th.
in November. Thank you.
The 5th. All right, cool, thank you. All right, moving on to scheduled meetings and hearings. So we have a 7:15 public hearing for the transfer of licenses to St. Mary and Christ Incorporated, located at 1 Main Street. I will invite the applicants up, and I will also ask the clerk to read the public hearing notice. Hi. Hold on one second, she just has to read a notice, and then we'll begin.
The Lunenburg Licensing Authority will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, October 1st, 2024, at 7:05 PM on the application submitted by St. Mary and Christ, Inc. for the transfer of an all-alcoholic beverages, general on-premise license, common victular, jukebox, and weekday entertainment license located at 1 Main Street, Lunenburg, Massachusetts. This premises is described as a single-story lobby, takeout counter, bar area, 22 by 20-foot outdoor patio, main dining area, women's restrooms, office, storage area, order area, and cook kitchen.
All right, awesome. Thank you very much. You're welcome. All right, so it looks like we have both co-owners here tonight. So since we haven't seen you before, if you wouldn't mind, I would love to give you the opportunity to just introduce yourself and talk to us about your experience running businesses.
Yeah, Maggie Tedros. I've been in the food business for about 25 years, multiple places. Most of it is like pizza restaurants. I had one adventure with full service restaurant, like Bad Larry, you know, and I had like a bar there and stuff. I think I don't know everything, but like I think I know enough for me to run a successful business. I've been doing it in too many places. As of right now, I own a pizza place in Holden, and I have a partner with another place in Worcester. At a certain point, I had run 4 places in the same time. I had really good, dependable help. Like, of course, I'm not going to be at 4 places in the same time, but I had really good people that helped me, you know. But everything was under my management, you know. I wasn't totally remote. I went like a couple days in each store to make sure, still knowing that you have good help. It's like my baby, my child, you know. So I had to make sure that it's going where I want it to be. In Bad Larry, I have a good partner. At a certain time, he worked for me too. That's how we got introduced to each other. So I trust him and I depend on him. And of course, I'll be helping. I'm not going to be there every day, but he will be the day-to-day person over there, open to close every day. At a certain point, I had a liquor convenience store, but I sold it to my brother.
Okay.
That's it.
Thank you for that. One question I am going to ask before we get started. So in addition to the licenses that you get through us, you also need a food service license through the Board of Health.
Yeah.
I'm aware that you guys were in contact with them dating back to the early
Yeah.
September timeline, but an update that we received today, so you guys still haven't submitted an application. Do you guys have a status update on that, just so we're aware?
That, I'll contact my lawyer, she should submit the application, but if it's not submitted, tomorrow morning I will stop by and the last time I came up, whoever I talked to, she said everything is all set. She didn't mention anything, and even I had to write a note over there. So, and I was under the impression that everything is all set. The only thing we were waiting for is a liquor license.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, you guys do need to follow the Board of Health to get
Yeah,
that
yeah,
taken
that's-
care of,
that-
because that's required as well.
Yeah, that's
But-
absolutely fine.
Okay, so I just wanted to bring that up. No particular order, I'll open it up to the rest of the board for questions.
Yeah, I have a couple. So, first of all, thank you for coming here tonight. I know that we
It's been like, like last time I came from the hospital all the way to the door here, but it was closed. I was trying to explain what is going on, but like,
well, we're happy to have you here tonight.
Yeah.
So I have a couple questions. So as you know, the Select Board is the licensing authority for an alcohol license. Part of our requirements, as stated in our alcohol regulation, is to minimize potential violations. We're trying to make sure that people don't get overserved and that the wrong people don't get served. So, you guys both of you together, are the applicant, you're a corporate entity, St. Mary and Christ, Inc. All shares of the corporation are held by the two of you guys. You guys are co-equal partners, so it seems. Each of you has a 50% ownership stake. So I do have a couple of questions. So previously, Mr. Escander, am I saying that correctly? You stated that you have no experience serving alcohol, but that you do have experience serving food. I got that correct? Okay. And then, Mr. Trajus, you just stated that you have experience serving food and alcohol. You just mentioned that you had a liquor convenience store, that you had a pizza restaurant, I think you said, that sold alcohol. Can you just talk to me a little bit about the restaurants you had that sold alcohol, that you were either owner of or manager of?
yeah, it wasn't in the state of Massachusetts. It was in Florida. At a certain time, I moved there for 2 years, and it was like a full-service Italian restaurant, and it had a bar. The section of the restaurant was a bar that served beer and wine. It wasn't a full liquor license, not like it was a boarding license that beer and wine. And but I know how to control it. I know the boarding, how the overboard, and like I know to do the measurement, like how many glasses you get from the bottle, stuff like that. And I had draft 4 or 5 beer on the draft, and we had quite a bit of glasses and cans. So
So you were serving, alcohol as well as selling liquor.
no, it's just serve and
Okay.
no. We're not allowed to sell any containers.
Okay.
So it's when I say cans and bottles, that they will have it inside. Like a lot of beers, you don't get it on the draft.
Yep, I know what you mean.
Like actually, if you get 4 or 5 drafts
Mm-hmm.
on the beer, those will serve in the pitcher. But like some other, like Sam Adam or whatever,
Yeah.
Coronas and stuff like that.
The way that we all buy beer. Yeah, you buy beer, sometimes
Yeah.
it comes in drafts,
Yeah.
sometimes it's in
But
a bottle.
nobody is allowed to take any container out of the.
Okay. So, there's certainly nothing wrong with being a successful businessman, with having multiple businesses.
Thank
But I do want to ask you a couple questions about the ones that you currently own or manage. So based on the information available on the Secretary of State's website, it appears as though you, Mr. Trajus, are the President, Secretary, and Director of George's Pizza 2. Is that correct?
George's Pizza?
Yeah.
Yes,
And that's in Worcester?
yes.
All right. So,
That's the one I have a partner with.
okay. And your partner is who?
Atef, A-T-E-F.
No, okay. You don't have to spell it. So you're also the president, treasurer, secretary, and director of
Everything in Goda's Pizza.
Okay, well, I'm just going.
Tatter's Family Inc., DBA Goda's Pizza.
Good, okay. And that's also an existing business?
Yes.
And where's it at?
I just came from here.
And where's it at?
In Holden.
Holden, okay?
1625 Main Street, if you put it Jefferson or Holden, it's the same town.
Okay. And are you also the president director of, I'm going to say this incorrectly, Pope Athan,
Pope Athanasius and Carolus Inc. That was a restaurant that served breakfast and breakfast and lunch.
but you no longer own that business?
No longer own it.
Okay.
I had a partner and I sold it.
Okay.
to him.
Are you also the president, treasurer, secretary, and director of T. Parthenon, Inc.?
Yeah, but that's not in business for a little bit.
Okay, so it's-
But it's in the process of being closed.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what kind of business was that?
That was running a restaurant too.
Okay, so that's a restaurant?
Yeah.
Okay. And did that restaurant serve alcohol?
No,
No. Okay. And you're also the manager of Baldwinville Village Associates LLC, is that correct? Or is that?
Yes, sir.
And what does that business do?
that owns a real estate.
Real estate, okay. And you're also the president director of Virgin Mary and Pope and Pop, I'm going to say the name incorrectly, Inc., is that correct?
Athanasius?
Yes.
Yeah.
Is
That's
that
a real
correct?
estate too.
That's real estate, okay. All right. You're a busy guy. So the application indicates, Mr. Straduce, that you had 150 grand cash on hand to finance this transaction, that there's no debt related to that. Is that correct?
That's between both of us, right? 150 between both of us.
I think the application said it was from you.
But anyway, it is available.
Okay. Have you ever been, so you have a lot of businesses, have you ever been fined or held in violation from any government, town, city, state related to any of these businesses?
No.
Okay. So I received or reviewed an enforcement order issued by Holden, Mass. on September the 11th, 2024, that indicates that you're the owner of property at 122 Jackson Street in Holden, which is lakefront property that you received a violation last month for removing trees within the wetland buffer zone. I think it said approximately 10
Yeah,
trees.
that's being resolved now. We have a restitution plan, and actually I had to meet with them today, you know. So that's, the problem is like that the borders of my thing was very hazy.
You don't have to get into
So,
the details.
No, what I'm saying, like that's being resolved now.
Yeah, we're not here for conservation. I think the question that I asked you was if you have ever been held in violation from any government, town, city related to any businesses that you own. You said no. And then the property at 122 Jackson Street, you just said that you were issued, and I saw it, a violation order issued from the town. They asked you in that order from September 11th to attend a meeting on October the 2nd to discuss that violation. Did you attend that meeting?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That's how we got to the restitution plan.
Okay.
And I hired one of the names that it was in their website.
Okay.
And she is working with the Worcester Water Department.
Mm-hmm.
And they came up to the thing, we're gonna replant some.
Yep. No, we're not here for conservation. The question is related to compliance. I mean, things happen, and so what I'm trying to understand by asking the question is,
Yes, sir.
there was issue, how did you react to the issue? And it sounds like you attended the meeting. In the application that you sent to us, I think it's page 3 of the ABCC application, section 6B, it asks if you've previously held interest in an alcoholic beverage license, and the answer is no. But you just said to us that you have owned 2 businesses that serve alcohol. I'm a little confused. Can you help me
No,
understand?
but that's like, I thought that is like serving alcohol, like in the state of Massachusetts.
I don't, maybe that's a question we can get clarification on. The way that I read this is 6B, it says, has any individual or entity identified in question 6, just to go up, question 6 is asking who the proposed officers, it's asking basically who the proposed officers, stock of ownership interest, and that's where you guys are listed, you and Mr. Escandar. And then as you get down to the questions, it says in 6B, previously held interest in an alcoholic beverage license. Has any individual or entity identified in question 6 and applicable attachments ever held a direct or indirect beneficial or financial interest in a license to sell alcoholic beverages which is not presently held? And the answer was no. I don't think it reads that in Massachusetts. I think it was just asking if you've ever had a license to sell alcohol.
Maybe I misunderstand that
Okay.
that question.
Okay, that's it. That's all I have. Thank you.
But as if we speak now, I don't hold any
Okay.
interest in it.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions? Anyone can jump in.
So did I just hear you say you currently don't have any liquor license
Right now?
right now?
No.
Do you have any more questions, Selectman Emke?
No, sorry.
All right. Selectman Alonso?
I didn't realize you were waiting on me.
No, I'm satisfied with the documentation we have. Obviously, they need the approval with the Board of Health, as
Yep.
you already mentioned, but everything else, I'm fine with what was presented.
Selectman Moore?
As my.
Yep. How about you? You have the most questions here.
Yeah, I think I do have some concerns. So I think that by all appearances, it looks like both applicants are capable of holding of doing the job, and that's, I think, the question in front of us today. So on that one, I think that I really appreciate you being here. It's been really helpful to me as a member. I think in the application, I read that 6B is incorrectly completed. That's my read, but I do get it. It's a state application, and one read could be it's asking if you've ever had one in the state. So I read that one a little differently. I would consider that to be incorrect. You also said today, and I have to get to the page, but one of the things that it's required to be disclosed here tonight, and it's on page 5 of the application where it asks for the source of the cash contribution. And I think one of the things that we ask for is like, hey, is there a financial interest? And it's normal. Most people don't have $150,000 sitting around. So it's pretty normal to borrow money for 150 grand. It's really a formality in my view. But what you said tonight was that the money came from both of you with the
Yeah, because we
application
are
says.
50/50.
Yeah, what the application says is that it didn't. So, I mean, there's some inconsistencies in this application, and that's what I'm
Yeah.
identifying.
And
That's it.
actually, I want to mention that my lawyer is very, it's in her, maybe that's her first business transaction she would do. So her experience is not like up to the point.
Yeah,
So,
But I mean,
yeah.
I hear you.
She's
but-
the one who filled in, submit the
Yeah.
application.
But you signed it.
I did. I
understand
know.
that. Yeah, I understand that, but from my view, like, it's normal to reach out to a lawyer to have help and assistance. There's no shame in that. Everyone does it. I think that, it's just important for it to be right. And for what you said tonight, the application doesn't match what you're saying. But again, it seems as if you're capable of running the business, you're able to run the business. I don't know if these things are barriers.
We can
yeah.
fix it and, resubmit it if you want to.
Okay.
All right. Personally, I'm satisfied with the way that you answer these questions. But again, the Board of Health license is kind of an issue here in terms of moving forward. So I'm not sure exactly what happened with that.
Well, if we can talk out loud.
That shouldn't be an issue, like, it's as easy as just fill the application. And usually they don't issue the license till after closing, and they come and inspect the place, and they issue the license.
I think
Okay.
I have a formality question on this one, which is, the request is to transfer the alcohol from, I know Al's here, but from Adam Wernick to you guys, right? And so I think the formality question that I have is that if we hand you a license today, because I think we've already signed it, that says, here you go, the transfer is done, that what happens in reality to the business tomorrow? Because that means that we've now transferred the business from one entity to the other, and the new entity doesn't have authorization from the Board of Health to actually operate. So in my view, that means you don't open tomorrow. So I don't know if it's in your best interest for us to give you a license today that's signed by us that says we've approved all this stuff, which I'm okay with approving it all, but I think the practical implication is that they no longer have the right to conduct business, and that you do, but you don't have the right Board of Health certification, so you can't conduct business. That's not on us. We're not the Board of Health. But I just don't know what that practical implication is for you if we sign all this stuff tonight, and then the plan, as I understood it, was that you're going to be working with Adam and Al, they're going to train you over the course of a month. How does that happen when they no longer have valid license to operate, and you don't have one either?
Doesn't the liquor license need to be approved by the state?
The liquor license, it's a separate, yes, the liquor license still has to go through, it's a whole separate thing. I'm speaking to everything else, everything that we approved
So
last
that's
week.
what I'm saying. If you hand me the license today, still it has to be approved from the state.
But that's the
That's the liquor
alcohol.
license.
So the thing.
Yeah, so we're talking about the common vic license that we gave you just to operate a restaurant. That also requires, in conjunction with that license that we gave you, the food service license through the Board of Health. You have to have both of those to operate the restaurant. So we gave you one, you guys still haven't gotten the other one yet. So that's an issue moving forward once we give you the license.
I felt that Board of Health application with the common victual license. But anyway, as I said, tomorrow in the morning when the office is open, it's just as easy as to apply to it, because I have my ServSafe certificate.
Yep.
And all what you need to do is just come and inspect the place, make sure there's no violations, and that's it. He gives the license right away.
I want you guys to be able to move forward, but I just want us to come up with the solution here that doesn't create any more issues.
Have we handed them over the common vit license? Well, that's the solution. The solution is we won't hand it over until they have a Board of Health approval. There you go. That's simple enough.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why we haven't given it to you yet. So we could continue to hold on to it until you have that license through the Board of Health.
Even if you guys issue the license today, we still didn't close on the place yet. And there's closing document between both lawyers, so that if we give them the green light today, I don't think we're gonna be able to close before early next week, till they both make sure that all the papers are up to satisfaction.
So I
So
think.
when I'm saying, again, we will go tomorrow to the Board of Health, fill the application, and even maybe when I go home, I download it, and I fill it, and I bring it and drop it off, and give him the check for the fee, and that right there, that will resolve that issue.
Yeah, I think the answer, as Mr. Alonso just stated, is I think that we need, as a board, to probably, with your agreement, I think we need to make a motion tonight to approve all this stuff again and make it contingent upon that Board of Health. And that way, the office can verify that, that once you get that Board of Health, we hand you the license for everything. And that way, you don't run into a situation where the business can't operate if you guys want to sign on the dotted line and everything doesn't come through in time. So we approve it all, but you need to get the Board of Health for us to hand it all to you.
Yes.
That's what I would
Yes.
suggest to my colleagues.
And that's absolutely no problem.
And that works for you?
And that's just two separate votes. We voted all the licenses last week. We did. So all we have to do is vote
The
the
all
liquor
alcohol.
license, and then we can vote to withhold the common Vittler's license until you have the Board of Health approval.
Yeah, okay.
You know, But, Mr. Chair, I mean, I have to say to the applicant, first of all, it was in very bad light that you didn't show up twice. And so I know that many people on this board were upset about that. But I want to comment that some of the questioning to the applicants went way beyond a fine-tooth comb that I don't think anybody has ever been subject to, where you're bringing out, you're basically almost publicly shaming somebody because they had a conservation violation in another town, completely uncalled for and completely off point for what's being asked of us. So I think we should just keep on topic. Again, I was not happy that the applicant was not here last week, but, questioning where he's getting his $150,000 from, and questioning that he didn't answer a question right because it's unclear, and even as somebody who's a native speaker, the question is unclear to me. I mean, just to bring out these things as potential, shady parts of the application, it just was unnecessary.
Yes, I understand, but like the first time, I thought one of us should be enough, because one can represent that especially he's the president, so he can, because we are incorporated. So I thought that he can, any one of us will represent and can sign for the incorporation. The second time, that was out of my hand because I went just to take take biopsy of my mouth. I end up it was like an incision biopsy in 3 spots in my mouth. So my mouth was swollen. I wasn't even
You don't
able to
have to go
talk.
into the details.
No, so I'm explaining like it's not disrespect or anything.
we
You know,
understand.
like it was just, you know, how sometimes stuff doesn't go the way you want it. You know, it's like, that's what
We
happened.
understand, and we're glad that you finally made it tonight, and like I said, I'm happy with the answers that you provided to the questions. All right, so we can move forward. So we have to approve the all alcohol license, and then if we want to do it as a separate motion to make the other licenses contingent upon the Board of Health approval.
Well, only
So
one
we
of
want-
them, only one of them needs to be contingent. so-
The common vic,
Right,
yes,
yeah.
yes.
So I would make a motion that we approve the all alcohol license transfer to St. Mary and Christ, Inc., doing business located at 1 Main Street.
Second.
Any additional discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The motion passes unanimously. Congratulations, you now officially have all of your licenses at least approved.
And I would move that we hold the common Vittler's license until such time as the applicants provide, or till the Board of Health, either one, provides us with notification that they have the proper certificates from the Board of Health to serve food.
Second.
Any additional discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, no. The motion passes unanimously. All right, so these are all signed, and we will hand them off to you whenever we get that confirmation from the Board of Health.
Like, what time do you open in the morning?
The Board of Health?
Yes.
I'm not sure. 8 a.m.
I think it opens at 8, but I'd be safe and say 8:30. It's
I'd be
across,
It
safer
is
and look
across
it
the
up.
street, yes. I know you've been in contact with them, so it's the same people that you've been talking to, so, yep.
Oh, tomorrow morning, first thing in the morning.
Yes. All right, awesome. Thank you so much for
guys.
coming in. I'm
Thank you.
glad that we were finally able to move this forward. All right, enjoy the rest of your night.
Yeah,
Yep,
thank
of course. Thank you. You're welcome. Have a good night. All right. Moving on to our next meeting, we have a one-day entertainment license for American Graffiti at 113 Summer Street for November 27th. Do you want to just let us know what the request is? I think we have the paperwork here. It's for a one-man band performance.
Yeah, just a one-night weekly entertainment license.
Okay,
I think it's November 27th.
that's correct, yep. 7:30 to 10:30 p.m.
Yeah, we're going to close at 11. We
Okay.
close early anyway, yeah.
Cool, no questions for me? Any questions from the board?
this is the day before Thanksgiving, right?
Yeah,
Yep. No questions
it's like a
from me.
big class reunion.
Nice. All right, is there a motion?
I move to approve the one-day entertainment license for American Graffiti at 113 Summer Street on November the 27th from 7:30 PM to 11 PM.
Second.
Any additional discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The motion passes unanimously. All right, awesome.
Thank you,
Thanks for coming in.
everybody.
That was very short and sweet.
It was, thank you.
Hope it's a good evening for you. All right. All right, moving on to the interim town manager report.
With respect to our projects, the library exterior paint project is almost finished. They took advantage of the great weekend weather that we typically have in the fall here in New England. They have a few punch list items to do. We had anticipated as much as 2 months, given the weather, so we're glad that that one's coming to closure quickly. Our second DPW salt contract has been signed. And I think I mentioned to you last week that the tree cutting services contract had come in a little bit above what we expected, but they've agreed to accept the unit price at $47.5 not to exceed, so we'll be able to proceed with that contract. We have 3 bids due tomorrow, all of which are ARPA projects, so that will help us get a clearer picture of where we stand and be able to report to you in much better detail at our next meeting. That's the DPW garage flooring, the partial roof replacement at the DPW, and the sewer manhole rehabilitation. There was one addenda that went out, and everyone has acknowledged or hopefully we'll acknowledge tomorrow when the bids come in. We have 2 site visits scheduled, the library teen room tomorrow at 1 p.m., and the town hall roof replacement is tomorrow, and then again Thursday, as we'd made that one mandatory. Both bids for those projects are due on November 4th, which will be the day before our meeting of November 5th. So that hopefully will give us, as I say, a much, much better picture of where we are with respect to ARPA. The Municipal Building Design Committee, I believe, met last evening. And some things to be provided to Julie, so she can send out that addenda, and the bids are due again November 4 at 12 p.m. The data collection services contract had some last-minute questions, which with the chair of the Board of Assessors, we were able to resolve on Thursday, and we are just simply awaiting for Vision to sign that contract at their end. We continue to have some open jobs, as do many organizations in this state. If you are enjoying watching this show on PAC, or talking baseball, or even talking garbage with the folks from Shaw's, any of those things, they're brought to you by our volunteers and videographers, and we are accepting applications anywhere from 2 to 10 hours per week, so a great chance to learn how PAC operates, and maybe you'll be the next YouTuber with what you learn. We do continue to have sewer business manager and assistant sewer business manager available, and unfortunately we have a vacancy today, as I provided to you earlier, in the truck driver labor category. I want to be clear, this does not require a commercial driver's license. This, with a regular driving license, can drive up to 1-ton vehicles, which makes them able to plow snow in our smaller vehicles. So if you think you'd like to come to work for the municipality, but you think a CDL license is required, it's not for this job, but Public Works will work with you to help you take that test, take the final test. We'll send one of our operators with one of the larger trucks so you can take your exam and help bring you along through the ranks. So this is a great opportunity for someone to break into the municipal employee side. We interviewed for our assessing administrative assistant, and keep your fingers crossed and light your candles. We'll be making that offer tomorrow, and we hope we'll secure that candidate. In terms of general communications, that we informed you last week, and I believe we supplied you with a copy of the memo that we sent out to all the Flat Hill residents. We did receive a thank you for communicating on that. If you didn't get that last week, I'll double check with Danny and just make, we will make sure you get it tomorrow. The sales data, which forms the basis of our submission of proposed values, was submitted this past week and has been approved. We now submit our actual proposed values. It's kind of a 3-step process here, and the Board of Assessing members need to sign that form, but we expect to get that done this week and have an estimated tax rate by the special town meeting for you. It won't be the classification hearing because of the 14-day notification requirement, but we will be able to provide you, assuming each submission is approved by the state. This one only took them about 2 days to turn around. We should be able to provide you with that estimate. As you know, we've been working with Mart on the Lunenburg Connect program. That is one of the articles we'll be discussing here. I believe the board actually already voted in favor of it. I'd have to go back and double check. Those fares will be going up a little bit from what they are right now. We were able to keep them reasonable, I thought. So a 1 to 10 mile ride will go from 3 to 4, 11 to 15, I believe goes from 4 to 5, and the 16 to 20 mile ride will be $7. To Emerson, anyone, anywhere in Lunenburg, irrespective of the distance, I believe, depending on where you are, it's 25 or 26 miles to Emerson, will be able to get that ride to Emerson Hospital from anywhere in Lunenburg at $7 each way. So I want to thank Mart for working with us on that. Yes, the fares went up a little bit, but we did that to try to keep the amount of tax subsidy we had to put in it down a little bit. With the assistance of the vice chair, we signed off on a grant request from the Green Community Program for $225,000. On Friday, I got a sort of a hectic message from the school department. They needed my signature, so I sent the electronic signature down, and then our vice chair pinch hit for the chair, so we got that in on Friday. We did a staff training today on the challenges in dealing with First Amendment auditors. Your electronic copy has a direct link to a news story about this. We had about 15 folks in attendance. I'm not sure if they were here for the training or the pizza and salad, but either way, we got about 15 of them here. I had some brief conversations, and they seemed to think that it was worth investing their time, and agreed that occasional training such as this would be useful, and perhaps we should try to expand from a volunteer to a voluntold basis of who should be here. But we're going to do a follow-up survey. What did they like? What didn't they like? Are there other subjects they think they'd like to have brought to their attention sooner? But it worked out pretty well. Julie and Annie just set up the chairs and used the TV monitor right there, as opposed to trying to get it onto the screen. So I thought that went fairly well. We have been advised that the APDC and the Historic Commission have both voted to urge a merger of the two boards. Setting aside the merits of that, once we receive the actual...
those two boards one more time.
The APDC
Yep.
and the Historic Commission.
Got it.
Setting aside the merits of that and how you would actually do it, we await their actual minutes and votes from them, and then we'll forward those to town council for review and discussion. There are some hurdles, I think both technically and philosophically, that you'll need to discuss once we can get those votes and talk about a potential approach for your consideration. We have Agricultural Commission, APDC, Board of Health vacancies, the Conservation Commission, the Cultural Council, Finance Committee, though we're down to 2 vacancies, not 3. My apologies. The Green Communities Committee, the Historical Commission, also has vacancies, and I think that may be what's driving this conversation between the APDC and the Historical Commission. Library Board of Trustees, Master Plan Steering Committee, the Personnel Committee, Stormwater Task Force, and the Zoning Board of Appeals. We are trying to do a review of all those appointments. Our process of keeping track of all the vacancies is not as smooth as I think. And so Annie's trying to go through all that and get the new listings up on the website. I did attend the Budget Task Force last evening, and I believe Member Emke will report upon that under member input, so I'll leave it at that. And that is all that I have for you this week, unless there are any questions with respect to it.
Any questions for Carter?
I have one. If the LA4 is certified this week?
I was told that it was certified today.
It was today? Okay, so what's our timeline now for new growth certification?
So what happens next is you submit the statistical update. That's all the sales values, and they're expecting to get that in this week, and then we should be able to get the new growth certified by mid next week.
So before special town meeting?
Yes, we expect to be able, assuming it goes as easily as the first submission went, we should be able to have it for you perhaps even by the 5th of November. We simply won't be able to have the classification hearing for you because of the 14-day notification requirement. And it still requires publication in a local newspaper of general circulation. And unfortunately, I think you have a weekly here.
Yeah.
So that actually elongates that a bit. But yes, we should be able to have an estimated tax rate for you.
That's good. I think the certification of the new growth before special town meeting is of more importance than the classification hearing before special town meeting.
With respect to that, when we get into the warrant, it was brought to my attention this past Friday that there's sort of a historic or a perennial Article 1, and I have that to distribute at the end. We would just update it to be for the correct year, and I would make it number 1 and just bump everything. Whatever remains after your votes tonight.
Have to be number 1.
Yes, yes, of course. But that would just bump everything down by 1, or unless you knock something off the warrant completely.
Any other questions? All right, thank you very much, Carter. Moving on to old business. Is there any other status update on ARPA that you'd like to add, Carter?
All I can say is watch that space tomorrow and then on November 4. Those are sort of our big question marks to answer. That really will put the picture in focus for us.
Any questions or comments on ARPA tonight? All right. Moving on to current business. First up, we have action regarding agreement extension for the interim town manager. So per the charter, we can have an interim town manager for 90 days, and we are allowed to renew that once. And 3 months is coming up at the end of this month. So it's time for us to decide if we're going to renew Carter's contract or not. In my opinion, Carter, I think you're doing a great job. I think we are getting more out of your employment here than I would have expected for an interim town manager, so it is an easy yes for me. So I'll open it up to the board.
Is it the same terms as
Yes.
existing?
Yep, it's just a renewal for an additional 90 days.
I concur. Fully.
I'd like to ask if the interim town manager could address the news we received this week about the other position.
Sure. I pledged to you that I'd be here physically 3 days a week and give you a minimum of 25 hours a week. I think I've shown that it's actually closer to 30. Friday's event, in which I got sort of a panic call around 3 o'clock, and we got that addressed very quickly before the end of the day, I think shows that, even if I'm not here, not on your clock, we get that turned around quickly. Had something similar yesterday with one of your committee members. For my home community, I was asked to step in. I told them that I could only do 2 days a week because I had a commitment to this community. Similarly, frankly, as I took that 15-minute or 20-minute call on Friday from you, there might be a day when I take a 15 or 20-minute call from them. They understand that it is most likely I will not be at their select board meetings. They start at 5 p.m. This is, I guess I've always been kind of a workaholic. This is what I did for Templeton and Grafton. For 4 months, I managed both communities. I think that if anyone was to speak with either of them, they would agree that they got the services that they were promised, plus more. I understand the board's concern. I think that my contract did allow for other employment. I understand the board's concern, and would fully respect the decision to not extend the contract based upon that concern.
So I'd be lying if I said I didn't have concerns. The news release I read stated that you would physically be in Town Hall in Moultonsborough several days a week. To me, several is more than 2. So does your contract, yeah, what can you?
I'd be happy to provide you with it's a public document, happy to provide you with a copy of my contract up there. It's 2 days a week. I can't control how the chairman of the select board issues a press release. But happy to send that out to you. I think I have it accessed from here, and I'll get that out to you in the morning.
And then maybe my last question, can you speak to, so you mentioned you had I think it was a 3-month overlap, right, with Grafton and Templeton? There's a lot going on here. We're heading into a special town meeting, we're heading into budget season. Can you speak to what was going on in those towns at that time?
Sure.
Anything similar?
Well, first, it was in the midst of COVID, so that had considerable challenges by itself. Grafton did not have a finance director, was going through some challenges in its fire department. I had to prepare the budget in both communities, and just bear with me for a moment. Oh, yes. I also had to deal with the fact that they had an override, part of which was to fund a special reserve fund, but they hadn't raised it in appropriations. So we had to talk them through the fact that if they didn't appropriate anything in year 2, a 2.5% increase on 0 was 2.5%. Also, the assistant town manager had been denied the opportunity to be, actually in Grafton, it's town administrator, had been denied the opportunity to be the acting town administrator, felt great loyalty to the town administrator who had been separated from the employee of the town and quit 3 days into the job. So I think it was pretty busy at that point. And in that point in time, we still had not finalized the financial picture for Templeton. They'd not had an audit in, I believe it was 3, perhaps 4 years. And so we still had to get them on a clearer path, and they were under revenue watch from the Department of Revenue. So there was quite a bit going on there also.
So when I was quite shocked when I got told the news on yesterday, and was actually shocked for, first of all, taking of the job, and then the fact that we found out the way we found out instead of from you directly, which was another problem from my perspective. The contract does indeed, your contract here does indeed say that you're not precluded from doing other jobs, but it certainly contemplates things like, in fact, clearly states, teaching or consulting or anything that shall not conflict with the interests of the town. So taking another interim town administrator position of that magnitude, I don't see, from my perspective, how that could not interfere with the interest of the town with what's already being done. Equally, the fact that one of them is your hometown and where allegiances lie, if there was a conflict, I'm not, again, I don't know you well enough, so I don't have any confidence one way or another that work would not get precedence and how it would not impact this. And I think as a member of this board, I owe it to the citizens of the town to ensure that we get the services we pay for, and I think that would impact that. So for those reasons, I don't see myself getting to a yes on the extension of the contract. It has nothing to do with what your performance has been to this date, but I am not confident that that will not be impacted going forward.
I understand your concerns. I have no personal difficulty with you casting a vote that's in keeping with those. I promised you 3 days a week, 25 hours. I promised you I would do what I said I would do, and I promised I would stay with you for however long it took to get you through. I have kept each and every promise to each and every community that I've worked for. Yes, it's my hometown, and the commute's a tad easier, but I have an obligation to perform what I said I would do for you. You don't know me well enough, other than the 3 or so months we've spent together. I can't speak to it any better than that.
So I'm just going to read from the contract. So the actual language here says, "Nothing contained herein shall prohibit the interim town manager from engaging in teaching, consulting, or other employ, provided such services shall not conflict with the interest of the town. For example, preparing grant applications for others, engaging in professional recruitment for others for a position at the same time as the town is engaged in such recruitment, and the like, and he shall otherwise fully meet his obligations hereunder." I have every confidence that Carter would not take this role without really considering whether or not that he would still meet his obligations here. And in my workings with him, I have full faith in his professionalism and his commitment. So, still a yes for me.
Also a yes for me. I think that Carter has done a fantastic job. I think from my personal experience and the things that I've been really invested in since I've came on the board and since I was an employee, and you know, still having relationships with many town employees, I've heard nothing but positive feedback for the things that have changed and have been done. And I'd like to continue to see that momentum, and I wouldn't want to see us in a position where we didn't have a town manager. So I am a yes on the extension, and I appreciate the work that is being done. You know, would it have been nice to have a heads up that that was coming? Absolutely. But I trust, especially knowing that Carter has had more than one of these positions at the same time previously, that he will fulfill his commitments to us.
All right, well, is there a motion then?
Well, can I ask, so I have one more question for Carter and then maybe for the rest of us. Can I ask Carter why we didn't get notified earlier?
I screwed up.
Okay.
I simply didn't think to push it out when I should have. I can't be any more honest with you than that.
Okay, I appreciate that.
And it was within a business day, right? We did get an email from you the next business day, the morning.
Well, social
after.
media is
It
what it
was
is,
on the
and
town
I owed
website.
you
Right.
that.
I'll acknowledge that.
It was
with
effective
social
Friday.
media and the internet, it has sped up communications.
It was
and
effective Friday.
our expectations of it. So,
I think the easiest thing is to take ownership of it.
I think
I've
that-
always found that's the best way to do it.
I agree.
I should have gotten you that notice. Simplest terms, screwed up. I've apologized in the email, I think. I'll apologize to you here on the record, and that's the only explanation I can give.
I appreciate that. I appreciate your honesty. The question, more general question for the board is, what happens if we don't extend the contract?
Well, I mean, I think that we have 3 votes tonight to extend the contract, so I don't know if that's a very rhetorical question.
well, I'll answer
It's
it.
a-
If we
it's a
don't, then we end
question.
up without a town manager.
No,
Not a situation I think we should put the town in my opinion.
more specifically, how would we go about, what's the timing, what's the impact of not having a town manager for how long would we not?
Nothing I want to consider.
I really appreciate getting answers to my questions.
I mean, if I may, Mr. Chair, I mean, I think that, you know, you're asking a theoretical question, Selectman Imke, but I think, you know.
I think it's good for the public to know when you're making a decision, knowing the impact of a decision, I think is fair, and I think we deserve it to the public. No? Do you not agree?
I think it's self-evident that, you know, we have an assistant town manager that would need to, you know, step into the role on a temporary basis if she's interested, and if we're willing to appoint. But I think the same process that we underwent to hire a new town manager or to hire an interim is the same process we would need to undergo to replace or to fill any void in town manager. So, I mean, previously, we got a notification, it took us almost 2 months to fill the vacancy, so I think that the implication is that we would go through all of November and likely most of December and not have a town manager, and that at some point in January, that we may have an interim for 2 weeks, because I think at this point, what we, as I understand it from our private, or not private, but from our email communications, you know, we're being asked when we're available in January to interview potential town managers. So I think it's on the agenda that we're likely going to conduct a hiring at some point in January, That's the presumption at least, and that the effective date would be at some point prior to the end of the month or first week of February. So, I mean, realistically, who would take a job for 2 weeks? And what would be the point of hiring someone for 2 weeks? So I think we would just be without a town manager for 3 months.
I think I'm not sure that we would have to, and this is my question, would we have to repost or could we go back to the pool we had, which would significantly shorten that timeline?
My understanding is we could go back to the pool we had.
Mr. Chair, are you looking for a motion?
I am looking for a motion.
I move to extend the contract for the interim town manager for 90 days.
Second.
Any additional discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no.
No,
No.
The motion passes 3-2. Happy birthday, Carter. Thank you very much. I appreciate you tremendously. I want you to know that. And as I said, I have full confidence that you would not have taken this other role without knowing if there would have been any impact on your ability here in town. And I just
Well, I want
don't even
to,
know
I
what
want
else
to
to
be clear, I
say.
don't take the vote as a lack of confidence in my skill or abilities,
Or lack of appreciation of what's been done?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Don't put words in my mouth.
There's a point of view, and they need to vote their convictions, and any night that I walk out of a board meeting still having the job's a good night.
All right, well, we achieved that. All right, moving on. Review and approval of special town meeting warrant articles. So we're going to continue to review and vote to make recommendations. We do also have to vote to accept the warrant articles that we have, accept the citizens petition, of course. So what does the board think? Do we want to do that in bulk, or do we want to go through one by one?
I'm in favor of bulk unless any member wants to pull something out.
We did have some questions, and we tried to answer those within the notations. Happy to walk through those. And also, there is a article that we need to add that is, I guess I'd call it a legacy article.
Yep. So do any members want to pull out any warrant articles?
yes.
Okay, so how many do you
What do you
want to
mean by
consider?
that?
Removing them from the warrant so that they wouldn't be brought to a special town meeting.
We do also have some that await either a vote this evening or a to be deferred.
Yeah, I thought we had a lot of them that we were going to be coming back to tonight.
Yep.
but- okay.
Yep, so we're going to revisit all of them, the ones that we haven't voted to make recommendations. We'll see if we're in a position to vote on them tonight. If not, we can also defer at this point tonight. But whether or not we want to actually include the articles in the warrant that gets sent out, and whether or not they'll be considered at town meeting, is something that we have to decide as a board as well. All right, so Selectman Alonso, it sounded like you wanted to consider pulling articles out. Which
Yes.
ones are those, just so I can make a list?
Getting to the numbers.
Okay.
Do you want to just do it when you get to them?
Yeah, I was thinking, since we're going to consider pulling some out, that we can just vote to accept one by one as we go through them. But I just want to know
The
ahead of
two
time.
SAP articles, 10 and 11.
All right, the SAP articles.
You
Is that
wanna-
it?
You want to remove them from the article?
Yep.
Any others? All
For the
right.
reasons I gave last week that I can reiterate here.
Okay, so we'll go through article by article. All right, so we're going to start with Article 1, authorization to pay late bills and funding thereof. So we do have a note here. We got our question answered. The late bill is from Canon Financial Services, which was for the school department copiers. And it looks like we did not vote on this one. Are we ready to vote to recommend approval on this one?
Move that we recommend approval of Article 1.
Second.
Any additional discussion?
Just as a comment, Mr. Chair, I know that we did last week make recommendations or not, but I think just, I don't know if it matters too much, but we might want to accept them before we make recommendations on them.
Oh, yeah, good point. My bad. I did want to do that. All right, so is there a motion to accept and recommend approval for Article 1?
So moved.
Second.
Any additional discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion passes unanimously. All right, moving on to Article 2, amending school fiscal year 25 budget. Did we vote on this one last week? No,
No,
looks
we
like
had
we did
a
not.
question about.
Oh, yes.
What the $31,882 was for, and I recall it being some kind of reconciliation but I don't remember if we had that clarity.
We did get that clarity. My understanding is that it's some reserve account for salaries. Let me, yes, here it is.
I believe we distributed that.
Yeah, we
right?
got an email from Brian.
Yep, we did. The funds will go to the line item of salary reserves, yep, to address critical staffing and compensation shortfalls. So that's where it'll go. I mean, I just have to say, like, additional Chapter 70 funding definitely should go to the school, so. But yeah, it's going to go to salary reserves.
Does it need to say that in the article?
No, because it's one, the school's one line item on our
what it is.
budget, so.
Yep.
Yep.
Fair enough.
Is there a motion to accept and recommend approval?
Mr. Chair, I move to accept Article 2 as presented and recommend approval from the Select Board.
Second.
Any additional discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The motion passes unanimously. All right, moving on to Article 3. We did recommend approval, so we're going to skip that. That's the Mart Connect.
Do we
Should
have
we move to
to
accept?
accept?
Oh, yep, my bad, sorry. Thank you, guys.
Mr. Chair, I move to accept Article 3 as
Second.
presented.
Any additional discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, no. The motion passes unanimously. All right.
Can we go back? Did I understand somebody say the school department is part of your total bottom line budget? It's not voted
No, I
on
think,
for the
no,
school
no.
So
department?
I meant to say that in our operating budget, the school department is just one line item. So there's nothing really for us when we're allocating.
But I may need to amend the total bottom line if you have it as just a department within
Yes. it's just
42
one line.
million. I may have to add the 24,881 now also goes to, let's say 42,031,000. So I need to look at how
The bottom line
that's.
of the operating budget, you have to update.
I might have to update the total, so I'll have to look at that in the morning.
Okay. All right, so we just did Article 3. And now Article 4, Adoption of Prudent Investor Rule. So we did have some questions. I know we've had some documents that were sent to us. Does anyone have any remaining questions about what constitute a prudent investment?
No.
All right, is there a motion to accept and recommend approval?
So moved.
Second.
Any additional discussion?
I do think that Article 4 should be accepted, but I do want to not recommend approval of the request.
That's fine.
So.
Do you want to
Can we
speak to
separate?
why?
I'll rescind my motion and make a motion to accept Article 4.
Second.
Any additional discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no.
And make a motion that we recommend approval for our Article 4.
Second.
Any additional discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, no.
No.
The motion passes 4-1. I'm just curious as to why you don't want to recommend approval for that one.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the library has been a great example of the fact that, you know, when you make the change, that it can result in an increase in income. You know, and my concern is that not all times in the market are going to be as good as the last several years.
Yeah.
And that, you know, I think that sometimes the low yields are safer. There's a little less risk involved, and so I prefer a little less risk when it comes to these things, so
Yeah.
that's why.
Oh, I get that. I mean, it's technically a little riskier, but we're still talking about mutual funds and
Yeah.
ETFs. Not like we're putting all the town's money into crypto.
No, I expect it to pass.
Yeah.
I think most people are going to agree with it. I just personally don't.
That's fine. All right.
Is it local custom to explain dissenting votes, the reasons?
During discussion, but no, it's not required.
Yeah, certainly not in the
At
warrant.
town meeting, you talking about?
No, I'm talking in the
warrant.
summary.
Not in the document, no, no, no.
Okay.
All right, moving on to Article 5, adopting certain clauses relative to tax exemptions. So it looks like we have a lot of updates here to specify what they're for. So I'll just read it. To see if the town will vote to accept Clause 17th E and Clause 17th F, both relative to the elderly, surviving spouses, minor child of a deceased parent, and Clause 41D, that's a typo right there, relative to the elderly, of Section 5 of Mass General Law, Chapter 59. Or take any other action relative thereto. Are there any remaining questions on this one? Oh, did we already vote on this one?
We did.
Oh, we did.
You had, based on the record I had, My
Okay.
notes might be off. You had some questions with respect to the language. The assessors have reworked it and said that they're going to prepare a full handout for the town meeting. So this is the substitute language that I got last Thursday. from
Okay,
them.
coming out of our discussion last week. Okay.
I will say I watched the Board of Assessors meeting after our meeting, and Sarah Camera did a great job of just very simple, bottom line, this is what it means. And so if anyone in the public saw that or wants to see it, it was very good.
Yeah, the summary makes sense, the lines after the summary, where they talk about what adopting it, everything would be, and then whatever that chart is supposed to be afterward is not at all clarifying.
Right, they've struck all of that. You'll see.
No, not, yeah, I see the stuff that's struck, but the stuff that goes over 41C and 41C assets and exemptions, and it says 41D will replace 41C, when 41C, I don't think is even mentioned in the thing, so it's just wildly confusing to people, even that summary. But if there's going to be a presentation, fine. I also made a note of that the actual wording of the article has clause 17th. I don't know why it's ordinal there, when clause 41 is not clause 41st. So either it's ordinal or regular numbers.
With respect to the new language, we used right out of the statute. We didn't attempt to go back in and correct any prior acceptances. And also with respect to the wording, I simply took what the Office of the Board of Assessors gave me, respected their elected position and their desires.
Yep, that's fair.
Okay?
Tom, you were at the same meeting I was simply trying to honor their
No, I'm not
their
talking about the
wishes.
description, the summary, I'm talking about the sentence of
Yeah.
the article itself.
Yeah, that's, the way it's presented, 17th E, 17th F, that is exactly the way it is in the legislation.
But clause 41 just says clause 41, not clause 41st? Anyway, it's irrelevant, it's a technical matter, let's go on.
All right, is there a motion to accept then?
I will, however, go back and double-check
You don't
the
have,
legislation. I understand, no, I want to get it right.
Yep.
I'll double-check, but I'm pretty sure that is, well, we'll double-check it.
I move to accept Article 5 as presented.
second.
Any additional discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The motion passes unanimously. All right, moving on to Article 6.
Move with the accept Article 6.
Second.
Any additional discussion? Those in favor say aye. Aye.
I will abstain from this one.
All right, those opposed, no. Any abstentions?
I abstain, yes.
All right, the motion passes 4-0-1.
Are you looking for a recommendation?
I am, yes.
I move to
Oh,
defer.
I abstained from the wrong, yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
That's fine, yeah.
I'm abstaining from the next one.
Okay,
I move to defer Article 6.
Second.
any additional discussion? Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Are you okay with
Abstain.
deferring it? You want to, okay.
I'll
Any
abstain.
abstentions?
Yes.
All right, the motion passes 4-0-1.
To defer.
Defer to
defer.
town, we're going to give our opinion to town, special
Yep.
town
Yep.
meeting.
All right,
Usually on the deferments, we don't count the votes, though, we just say deferred.
right, but you made a motion to defer, so.
Yeah.
I had to,
No, I'm saying for the.
oh, for him, yeah.
Okay.
We just
Same
say it's
card.
deferred, yeah.
So I'll just use the same as I had for the Finance Committee?
Yeah, deferred, yep.
Well, they say to be made at or prior to the meeting, so do you want me to say, is that okay?
We
if
usually
I-
just put the word deferred.
Deferred? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we can do it at the meeting. I think oftentimes, if new information comes out, we can make the recommendation before the meeting, then we do, but I think in this case, I want to hear the presentation.
Sure.
Okay. All right, Article 7, Council on Aging Revolving Fund Meals Program.
Move that we include it.
Second.
Any additional discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The motion passes unanimously. And it looks like we did vote to recommend this one last week. Which one was that? 7? Yep.
7.
All right, moving on to 8. Parks Department Revolving Fund.
I move that we include Article 8.
Second.
Any additional discussion? Those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The motion passes unanimously. Is there a motion to recommend approval?
I recommend that we approve Article 8.
Second.
Any additional discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The motion passes unanimously. All right, on to Article 9.
Move that we include Article 9.
Hold on. What's for Article 9? Okay, the Brooks House. Okay, go ahead.
Second.
Any additional discussion?
Yes. The Municipal Building Design Committee did have a presentation last night, and we support this article.
All right, great to know. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The motion passes unanimously. And I believe we did, yes, we did. We voted to recommend this one already. All right, moving on. Article 10, Salary Administration Plan Amendments, base proposal. So I'm going to pass it off to Carter for this one. This was one article, and Carter, you split it into two. So if you want to just tell us which one's in Article 10 versus Article 11.
Sure. Frankly, I tried to split them apart in terms of the pieces I thought might be able to achieve the most support versus the piece that I thought might receive less support. So this section provides a mechanism for a starting hiring rate as high as step 4 after consultation with the chair of the Personnel Committee. And then above step 4, it requires a formal vote. The reason for this, as I spoke to a little bit, is that whenever you want to hire someone above the starting rate, first the HR has to notify the Personnel Committee. You have to select a date that hopefully people could make for a meeting, get it posted, await the posting period, and hopefully have a quorum to act. During that 4 plus or minus days, assuming we do in fact have a quorum for the meeting to act, my fear is that in today's market, you lose prospective employees. The second piece of that, in terms of B and C, speak to new definitions in terms of ranking people as part-time A or part-time B employees. That is because of the definition that you had on your intermittence that doesn't really fit. D, and I've had some conversations with some folks who are provides special merit awards in 3 categories. It is not a requirement that they be awarded each year if there are not worthy nominees. I have had some discussions of will it turn into a popularity contest. Frankly, it could. This will depend to some degree on the backbone of the town manager. If there is not a worthy nominee, to not make an award, simply to make it. The other discussion item was whether or not some of the category names accurately captured the definition for, let's say the efficiency. It's not just, we talked about people stepping up, stepping in, cross-training, suggesting ideas that result in ease of processing, savings of time and material. I'm not wed to the nomenclature if there's an idea that there's a better name for that category. This is one of the things that came out of the listening sessions, employee recognition programs. The recruitment incentive, that is, we do get some new people that start, and the prospect of awaiting any time off for 6 months, especially someone who has perhaps some doctor's appointments pre-scheduled, young children and the like. The idea here is that we would give them 5 days of leave time, and then we would claw it back over time. So this isn't, yes, it's front-loading their leave bank, but then as they earn time, that is clawed back. We did not include vacations for the part-time employees at this point in time. That is one item that we moved into the second article. We did, however, talk about the ability to recognize prior experience. And I've did send out with the one board member I was talking with some examples from others in one town. It actually allows, if you were at another town for 15 years, you come into their town at 15 years. So if you get 4 weeks, you're going to get 4 weeks. Here, our proposal is to cap it at 3. So communities are starting to recognize the challenge of attracting talent when a move might cause somebody to go from 3 or 4 or even 5 weeks of vacation back to a starting point of, depending upon the community you're in, 1 week or 2 weeks. I wouldn't necessarily say all communities are recognizing it, but they are starting to recognize it, and I think that's a trend that will continue to grow. We did leave holiday pay was something very strongly mentioned in the listening sessions, particularly if we have an employee who's working part-time and they're making a go of it by working another part-time job. They can't just come in, if it's a Monday holiday, they lose that day's pay, but they can't come in on Tuesday to make up for it because they have another part-time job elsewhere. So we have said that those people are part-time A, not our intermittents, not our seasonals, would receive holiday pay provided they were regularly scheduled to work on that day. So if your week is Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday, or Monday and Thursday, and the holiday's Monday, you do get paid for the hours you were scheduled for, but there is a prohibition on trying to change your schedule or for having your employer change your supervisor change your schedule. So you can't get holiday pay and then come in on Tuesday and work. There is some loss in productivity. I believe we sent you a grid on that. And that you do have to weigh the loss of productivity versus some increased level of employee satisfaction. And that's much more subjective balancing act than objective. We've made it clear that those employees would not be eligible for the floating holiday. We haven't, that's just, it's a calculation, and it's just not worth it in our opinion. We have proposed the creation of a sick leave bank that would be done in conjunction with a policy created by this select board after consultation with the personnel committee. We would certainly have tried to respect the possibility that that committee will be restaffed and be functional. Should it not, you could adopt that policy, see how it works for a year or two, and then have further consultations with the personnel committee. We tried to flesh it out a little bit more. You could have an initial draw of 20 days, a secondary draw of 20, because people had some questions as to how it might work, so we tried to add some language there to do that. This also came out of our listening sessions in which people spoke of, well, in this department, somebody was sick and they were allowed to donate time, but then one of our people was sick. And so we're trying to move from sort of a singularity and favoritism, one-off kind of decision-making, to one more of a consistent approach based upon written policy. Now, I have had a question of, does this change any union contracts or any individual contracts? It does not. Should the unions want this, you would have to have a discussion with them and enter into a side letter. I frankly think that both of these would be well received, and I don't see any point in trying to claw back any paybacks on them. Excuse me. Town council did advise on the jury duty. This is, a recent addition late today, that jury duty has to be paid for everybody across the board. Well, for the part-time, not for the intermittent and seasonals. And the longevity, we made it clear that the less than 20 hours, what we're calling part-time A classification, would not be eligible for the longevity, and we've changed a couple of the definitions to try to address that. The employment contracts, we've had a question about, well, who are these other type of people? And so I gave an example of, technically, under the reorganization for the land use department, as I read it, and I could be wrong, your building inspector is not a department head for the purposes of contract, and there's not statutory authority. So the town manager could come in and say, building inspectors are in really, really short supply. I'd like to be able to use this section. The board would have to make a decision. I would also point out that these are for limited terms. They're for 3 years, and that they are subject to the approval of this body. So we took those things that we thought might best receive support and put them into one. And in Article 11, we moved the vacation and sick leave into Article 11, and we capped it at 2 weeks. We think that with part-time employees, quite frankly, whether they're here 3 years or 20 years, 2 weeks of paid vacation for the part-time employees is reasonable. And so we're hopeful that by capping it, we could, quite frankly, gain some additional support on that as well. I think that walks through all the things that we've done here, and happy to answer any questions.
So one question that I have in particular is about the Personnel Committee. In the first mention of it, all the way at the top, compensation increases. So what do we do if there is no Personnel Committee who can formally vote to approve increases or setting someone at above step 4?
The way the SAP is, well, first, without a personnel committee, the bylaw or the code actually devolves that decision to the town manager. I think that's not a good situation in this instance. This language is specifically intended to limit the capability of the town manager in this role. We could add a line in the absence of a quorum of the personnel board to act upon this, such decision shall be made by the select board. We could do that. Frankly, I don't anticipate coming in above step 4, but I won't be here. Hopefully I'll be here another 90 days, or 93, whatever that takes. But we could certainly, I think, do something with that to address that concern.
I mean, I don't feel strongly about it either way. I just wanted to make sure that in terms of language in the bylaw, that situation that we're in right now is covered.
Or we could make it really clear, in the absence of a formal action by the personnel board, the town manager has no authority beyond this point. I mean, the point of that is to cap it. And I did have a discussion with one member about that. We talked about step 3, we talked about step 4. I think we reached an accord on step 4, but I think we were in full agreement that it needed to be capped, that the town manager couldn't just do whatever the blue blazes they wanted.
Yeah, no, I understand.
I would like to say that I've had comments from another board members. I've had a board member too take time out of their workday to review this, and I do want to appreciate I think one board member was kind of nodding off as they were working through it. I think that was their comment. I do want to thank the board for their input and an ability to respond to their concerns and comments.
Absolutely. All right, I'll open it for discussion.
So I have a few questions. Oh, do you have questions?
Oh, you go ahead. I just have a comment.
So you said several times that we reviewed this is what we chose. Can you explain to the people who the we are?
Sure. We went through a process which, and I use we a lot, so I'm not using the word I. we went through a process where we first collected the concerns and comments of the staff in those listening sessions. We gave the board sort of a 30,000-foot overview, if you will, of the main concerns that we captured and what we might be doing to address that. Then Julie, your HR and Assistant Town Manager, and I worked through different language. Some of that was bounced off of department head meetings. What do you think about this amount? What do you think about that amount? What do you think is the most important thing? The document was then circulated to, I forget exactly how many. I think there was 79, whatever group of employees Julie has in her email blaster. It went out to 79 plus or minus town employees. I'm not sure they're necessarily highly critical, because quite frankly, these are favorable things to them. Also, it was reviewed on 3 separate occasions with Mark Terry, once at length over probably an hour and a half Zoom to go through word by word, bounce some concerns back and forth. That's the collective body of folks that were involved in one fashion or another at one point or multiple points.
How many listening sessions were there?
There were 2, and some emails.
When was the last one?
I believe they were September 24 and September 25. I'd have to go back and, if that's a Wednesday and a Thursday?
Just I mean, so the
Yeah,
end of September,
Yeah,
so less than a month ago.
yes.
Or at a month ago.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Financial impact. Will this have a financial impact?
It will have a productivity impact. So let's talk about the financial impact. Would someone be offered a higher starting salary than under the current system? I think it's frankly going to end up 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. The question is one of, frankly, speed, being able to do it more efficiently. So I'm not sure that there's any cost impact there. The holiday pay, many of the folks, those that can, are trying to shift their days a little bit. So if you have someone who's currently working Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday, let's say, and they get paid for a holiday, yes, they're 6 hours on Monday, they'll now get paid for. If that person in another department is shifting to Tuesday, you're paying them, so that won't. I'd have to go back and calculate exactly what that is. I think the larger issue is with the second article, which extends vacation and sick leave. That has the financial impact.
Since you presented them in the collective, I will ask in the collective, will this have a financial impact?
I would estimate the financial impact at less than $5,000. I would say the real impact is the productivity loss on that grid that I sent you of how many hours might be lost during the course of the year if someone was eligible for all the holidays as we projected and the vacation, and they took 100% of the sick leave. That generally doesn't happen.
Frankly, the grids that I got sent didn't have any attachment to anything, so they just floated in the air. I don't know what grid attached to what. So I don't know what the grid meant until you just said it.
Okay.
So am I correct in saying it will have a financial impact in the collective if passed?
Modestly, yes.
Okay. Do we have those financial impact statements? Do we know what that will impact?
Approximately $5,000 a year is my best estimate.
But it's just a head calculation. There's nothing you can show me that shows that.
I'd have to analyze a couple years of staffing changes to see if somebody who worked on a Monday switched to a Tuesday. We could do that.
Right. Well, I mean, generally, that is, again, those kind of impact statements, I'm assuming, I don't want to take the finance committee's, thunder, but I'm assuming they'll ask that on Thursday, because if it has an impact, and then, of course, it does have an impact with the sick bank indirectly for how it might affect employee contracts, union contracts, because, of course, if that's there, then it's going to move somewhere else. My next question would be, it was raised by the chair just now about, in the beginning of this, about the authority of the Personnel Committee and them formally approving this. Well, the Personnel Committee has a role in town government. And one of those roles is to review these. And I mentioned this last week, and I'll mention it again. Without any committee thus comprised to review it, it has had no eyes, basically, except for you and the interim, not the assistant town manager, HR director, for the most part. I mean, you said you've met here and there, but this board, this is the first that we're discussing this. And it was put together after the listening sessions, which were a month ago. So you went from listening sessions to six pages of changes and additions, one of them including a sick bank that doesn't do anything except tell people that eventually we're going to have a sick bank policy, but then goes on to make restrictions on that policy that doesn't exist yet. And all of these without review, both by this board and, most importantly, to the public for their review. They're not going to get this in any form until a week and a half, 2 weeks. And that means they'll have 1 week to review this and find out whether they should vote for this or not with, from my perspective, no data. Just no data, except that this came out in the listening session. So that's why I would like it pulled. There are things that are important in this, and I think there are things that need to be addressed in here, absolutely. I just would like to do it in a thorough way. One of the first things I mentioned when our interim town manager was hired was what I want them to do is stay the course. I don't want wild changes without a permanent review, and this is one of those changes. This is a very large change with no committee oversight, because we don't have that committee. The reason why we don't have that committee, we were told this evening by my fan base, is because I somehow dissed the Personnel Committee, which I don't understand why I was targeted for that, but that is not the reason the Personnel Committee left, and I would recommend people talk to the prior Personnel Committee for why they left. But anyway, without oversight from a committee that's required to do this, I don't think it should be included for those reasons, and because it hasn't been out in the public long enough for anybody to even discuss them. This will be our last meeting, and we have one more meeting before town meeting. I don't know how that gives anybody enough time to understand this when, again, I'm given charts and I don't fully, understand the ramifications of the wording of some of this.
The only thing I would like to say in response is I was also tasked with attempting to listen to the employees and make the efforts that I thought we could make to restore morale and confidence in the town as an employer. Yes, I would have liked more time to roll this out. And yes, this is a little bit more than I would normally present as an interim town manager. But I do feel that this is somewhat consistent with that second task that I was given, was to listen to those employees and attempt to improve our recruitment and morale.
Right, I would, and my response back would be, and you've done that, I don't remember saying that we should rebuild or revamp the SAP. I think we wanted to gather that information, and I would commit to the employees of the town who, again, I want to be clear, I think do, yeomanship in what their jobs are and what they're doing. And I want to approach this, comprehensively and thoughtfully and come up with something that will be easily explained and easily digested from people after everybody who is required to do it reviews it.
The only other comment I might make, if I might, Mr. Chairman, is that I certainly would hope that you get sufficient volunteers to fill all your committees. But whether you, should you withhold this, not withhold it, but you hold on to this tonight for future work, I do think that the board needs to understand that if you are not able to fill all those vacancies, it will ultimately end up being the de facto personnel committee for purposes of reviewing these and making that submission.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, I have some comments.
Yep.
I certainly appreciate, how quickly this is being moved, but I think I probably say it at every meeting. This is something that I am really passionate about. I did spend some time working with Carter, just having discussions about it. I've done a lot of research, even before these things were brought forward, for, just working for the town, and with different members of different unions. I know this is SAP, but just in general. I definitely understand the concerns about the pace, but I think these changes are essential to support our employees and to ensure that we remain competitive. I think the updates to the vacation, sick leave, and holiday pay, especially for part-time employees, are a step toward greater fairness and equity. I think there has been several situations where we have extended offers that have not been received or have not been accepted because we don't have these things in our SAP. I think part-time workers are vital to our team, and offering these prorated benefits will help us retain and attract that talent. Additionally, I think the flexibility to adjust compensation for new hires and introduce recruitment incentives will allow us to remain competitive, or maybe become more competitive versus other towns. I think that if we adopt a standardized process, like a clear prorating formula, which I believe is addressed, we can ensure fairness and simplicity in managing these benefits. I don't think these changes are just about adjusting individual benefits. I think they're necessary to maintain a strong, supported workforce that can serve our community effectively. Most of these articles we just talked about, I believe, have a minimal financial impact, but I think in the long term, it'll positively impact our community if we are able to maintain our staff and retain and recruit new employees. I think now is the time to move forward. This can always be readjusted. It's not a permanent, it's still a living document. If we make these adjustments, there's no saying that we can't make another adjustment next year, or if a new personnel board, we have a fulfilled personnel committee, excuse me for stumbling. We asked the employees for their input in listening sessions, and I think that at least bringing these forward to town meeting for the town people to be able to vote on them is important. I do think that it should stay on the warrant. Regardless of, even if we defer our opinion, I think having it on the warrant shows our commitment to our staff. I do know that it's really important to the people that are still here to show that, we're continuing to move forward. And I appreciate everything, that Selectman Alonso brought forward with waiting, and I understand that, but I think at least bringing it forward to town meeting shows our commitment and allows the town people to vote on it. That's all I have.
Any other discussion?
Yeah, so my comments are, I think, having the listening sessions, hearing the feedback and acknowledging the feedback, trying to address it, that's what we should be doing. That's great. My concern is this is a lot. This is dense. This is a lot to do in a very short period of time. And I'm thinking, are there parts of this that we can pull out to do? I don't think expectation for someone to think that government can move that quickly, my experience is it doesn't move quickly at all. I have questions like with the recruitment incentives and advancing the 5 days of leave time. What happens if the person leaves before they've accrued, worked long enough to basically accrue that 5 days of leave? We've had that happen. So there's details in here that I'm just not clear about. And I don't know if it's been thought through enough. The sick leave bank, I think that's a great idea. I don't personally like the way it's written, and I've shared this with the interim town manager. It's an article to say that we have a goal to do this, but then it gives some details, but I think Selectman Alonso said it's details about a policy that doesn't exist. So I'm not even sure this has to be in SAP right now to say that we're going to establish a sick leave bank. Can we just do that and have that actually as a goal to bring to Springtown meeting? That's an example. So I'm just, where my head is at is, are there parts of this that we can pull out? The merit awards, it's, I hear that was, people wanted that employee recognition at the listening sessions, and I keep coming back to, is it Chris Lekaditis?
Christos?
Oh, Chris yeah, Christos, who said, you know, we don't want coffee and donuts. That's not what, if you think that's enough, you're not hearing us. And the merit kind of, to me, feels a little bit like the coffee and donuts. I mean, I'm happy to do it, but I just, you know, that's acknowledging that that's not enough. The section 7030 in employment contracts, I'm still confused by that language. I was the one who said, you know, I was doing this on a Sunday and I just started having mental fatigue, and I thought maybe that's why it was confusing, but it's still confusing to me. So I think I want to do right by our employees, but I think I want to do it carefully, and I think there are things in here we can do now, but I think there are things that we should bring in the spring.
May I make some suggestions that might move us towards that?
I wanted to make
Oh, I'm
some
sorry.
Yeah, all right, me too. We'll get there. Go ahead. No, you go first.
I think that the Article 10 as presented, I support it. I support including it. I want to recommend approval of it. You know, I think that I've been in this seat for 5 years, and I have been overwhelmingly frustrated most of the time. And, you know, and part of it is that I have said several times that I don't think we're a great employer. I just don't believe it. And I think that the ability to even in this seat, bring about change has been overwhelmingly slow and inadequate. And so I think that, you know, to see the changes that are being presented, first of all, I mean, you know, to have, after encouraging our previous town manager to have listening sessions for 5 years, it is encouraging that it actually got conducted at long last. It's encouraging that staff attended these. It's encouraging that there were tangible results that came out of these discussions that were vetted by the people most impacted by the policy. To me, that is the beacon of how we should be making a lot of these policies. So I don't want perfection to be the enemy of progress. I think that there's opportunities, certainly for improvement. The absence of a personnel committee, I mean, you know, it's kind of like telling someone, hey, we don't have an HR department, so sorry, you can't sign up for benefits right now. You know, sorry, you can't get your vacation time approved. You know, if we're not okay with our employees ceasing their operations until we have a full functioning personnel committee, then we shouldn't be okay with not doing necessary personnel-related actions while we have the staff that are here every day doing the work. And, you know, in the absence, we have a process that I think some of my colleagues have highlighted that should be followed, but there's no way right now to follow it. We don't have a personnel committee. So there is no way for people on a committee tasked with looking into personnel policies to actually do it. And so we are depending upon the expertise of the HR director and assistant town manager, who has a lot of experience. We're depending upon the expertise of our department heads. Each one of them has more than 20 years of experience in their departments. We are depending upon the expertise of the town manager, interim town manager, who I understand to have almost 4 decades of experience in this area. I think that what we have in front of us tonight is a document, and I said it last week and I'll say it today, that's common sense. And when we dig into what we're asking people for, we're saying, hey, if you are sick and you can donate some sick time to your fellow colleagues, I don't think that that's controversial. I think that when we talk about, you know, part-time employees and people who are scheduled to work on Mondays, that they should be able to get that day off as a paid holiday if it's their normally scheduled day. That's not controversial. Special merit pay awards. Most people these days get bonuses. Recruiting incentives. These things to me are pretty straightforward. The ability to start someone at a higher step with approval from a personnel committee, I also don't see that as being controversial. So I think that what we're being asked to decide tonight, I think that most members of the public generally don't pay attention to many meetings. Certainly, they have the ability to participate, but a lot of people do come to town meeting, and the booklet goes to everyone's home. And there will be a fair opportunity at the town meeting to understand what's being asked. Based on what the interim town manager said, this has been vetted through 79 staff. That's most of our employees. And then the language in here on the end about the jury duty, and let me just, jury duty, that's not controversial. It's something we must do. But the employment contracts, and we run into this already, where, I've questioned with the previous town manager, how are we, ratifying a reappointment of someone whose contract we haven't even seen? And to have the position that the select board only approves contracts in the first instance, and that every subsequent contract does not need to come before the select board, to me, this clarifies that and says it does. And so I support including it in the article.
So I work in tech, which has a lot of downsides, but one thing that tech is really good at is benefits. So one thing that's really common is unlimited PTO. So you started a company and immediately you are obviously within reason allowed to take off however much time you feel is appropriate. And companies do that because they trust and respect their employees and they treat them like adults. So when I see something in here under recruitment incentives, depositing up to 5 days of leave time for employees to start with, I mean, that's like the first step in creating benefits that truly respect and value our employees. Not controversial to me at all. And Michael Ray, you brought this up. I'm glad you did, because I'm going to bring it up as well. We hear from this board a lot, trust the professionals. We do that all the time when things are brought before us by staff. And in this case, we have an interim town manager with decades of experience. We have an HR professional who worked on this. And we have around 80 staff members who are actually impacted by these policies. Their lives, their family, and their paychecks are actually impacted. And they're supporting it. So for me, it's truly a no-brainer. I mean, I'm happy that we're doing this. I think it's a step in the right direction. I'm happy to see the town actually listen to employees, offer warrant articles at town meeting that address the needs of our employees, and I'm happy to see that we're slowly becoming a better employer. So I fully support it. All right, so we just had a member walk away real quickly to take a phone call, so we should probably wait until they come back. But Carter, you said you wanted to address something.
First, I don't hear anything being said that it's all more about pace and clarity than it is the merit of the suggestions. I would like to walk through some potential changes we could make here tonight that perhaps could bring us a little closer together. So at 70-12 on A, what happens if there isn't a town manager or a personnel committee? We could add a sentence there that makes it very clear that if there isn't a personnel committee, the town manager can only go to step 4, period, end of story, can't use the workaround. I'm not exactly sure exactly how I would word that, but I think we could do that in a way that would be agreeable. With respect to the recruitment incentives, I don't have a problem in striking that, but let me tell you what your real problem is. You can't use a day of sick leave until you've been here 6 months. That is not realistic for our employees coming in, and it is not in keeping with the practice of the vast majority of employers.
It's inhuman, Carter. I mean, it's
So,
inhumane. To tell someone they got to work for 180 days without a day off is inhumane.
So we could strike this and frankly go at the heart of the issue, which is you start accruing your sick leave as soon as you come in. You don't have to have this 6-month delay. That would address, frankly, the real heart of the issue, and address the concerns that Member Emke is expressed about, do we get out front of somebody? They take those 5 days, they're only here 2 or 3 months, and do they sort of walk away with a couple paid days off? So my suggestion here this evening is that we strike 70-12-1, and the staff proceed to bring you for the spring revised language that addresses the real heart of the problem as I see it.
I wouldn't want to strike it. We can add something that says that you're only, so the issue, the concern here, right? And I think sure, it's a valid concern. If someone leaves 2 weeks after they start their job, now we have to pay them out 5 days of time. That's the concern, right?
I mean, yeah, is this leave or is this sick leave? You know, is there any kind of leave, any paid leave?
It
It's
was
not
any,
restricted
it was
to
any kind of leave, they're not gonna be allowed to take, vacation. But perhaps it's a personal day, perhaps it's a sick day.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
was meant to have some flexibility to it.
Something came up
And I'm
or something
assuming that they
happened.
would still have to get that, if they come in and on day 2, they say, oh, I want to take next week off, I want to go to
but-
Florida or whatever, that
No,
won't be approved.
No, they wouldn't be able to do that. I do want to say, though, that the real heart of the matter is the way you currently have people accrue time and not able to use it for 6 months. It
Yeah.
simply doesn't work in today's
That
marketplace.
doesn't make sense to me.
And needing to have some level of, recruitment incentive is becoming more and more. I mean, there are towns that are actually paying signing bonuses for folks. So this is one I think we could lose as long as, when I say lose, this is one we could knock out to narrow it up, make it a little bit cleaner, as long as we recognize this is an issue you need to address.
I'm not okay striking this section.
I would only be okay striking it if we propose the change in 70-20 to fix that other issue now. I think that this is something that is consistently brought up, and one of the main reasons why people don't accept jobs. I mean, if you have kids, if you're sick, if there's any, I mean, as Selectman Jeffries said, to not be able to take a single day off for the 180 days just isn't reasonable,
So
in my opinion.
can we not have people accrue as you go? I mean, that's
Right, could we
how
just
mine
change
works. Like,
that?
day one, I start accruing, and with supervisor's approval, I can go up to a week negative if something comes up, and then I rebalance that as I accrue.
Well, I think that's what it, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't that what this says? That you deposit up to 5 days of leave time, which shall be charged against earned leave time over the coming year with which to begin their employment. So I mean,
Initial deposit.
so that just gives them the
It's
ability to
clawed
use the
back.
time, but it's charged against what they
Truthfully,
naturally
we
would
thought
accrue.
this was an easier route to go than trying to revise the whole way in which you accrued leave time. We thought that was a much larger discussion.
Leave time accrual, I think, is a bigger issue. That is the root of the.
Right, and it
We-
really needs to be completely.
We read the room, at least, those that would deal with it, as that being a much larger issue, changing how all that was done. I think it's something you need to look at, but this was thought to be an easier workaround. The sick leave bank, frankly, that could be struck, as long as the board, in my view, committed to doing it and bringing it forth in the spring. We could also narrow it down substantially. Initially, the draft ended after the word emergencies.
Yeah.
All the rest of it was added to try to clarify things. If that has just made things more confusing.
So say that again?
Let's just strike
So it
it.
would be such a program, et cetera, after that?
So it says, in the fourth line, the original draft ended at the word "during medical emergencies."
Okay.
We added the others because we kept getting questions, well, how's it gonna work, how's it gonna work? I mean, frankly, we did those first 3 lines because we didn't have time to write a 4-page
Right.
policy document.
Well, and even if we're
And
gonna.
we didn't think that needed to be part of the SAP, quite frankly.
Right.
So we-
I mean, I think it would be okay to strike that, because we would still have to go through all that
Yes.
anyway and formulate it, so that,
You're saying strike this section?
no.
No,
not
no,
at
no,
all.
no.
So if you read
ended
it,
at the word emergencies.
So everything beyond that?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, I see
So
what you're
then,
saying.
it's simply, this article is simply assigning a task, a goal. It's not establishing anything, it's just saying this will be done. I mean, it just seems
But
like a weird,
Well, it sets a
They
firm,
put it in
for the
warrant.
employee's perspective, it sets a firm date.
But doesn't that allow us to implement it before the next town meeting? If we,
I think it has to go, it's a change to SAP, it'd have to go to town meeting, right?
No.
the way
this-
it's written is it says no later than June 30th, as long as
Wouldn't
the
the-
policy is vetted, doesn't that mean that?
This board, what this does is give this board the ability to establish the policy to create a sick leave bank and how it would be used. It would not have to go back to the town meeting and include it in the SAP at length.
Shouldn't it go back to town meeting? I mean, I don't know how everyone feels. Shouldn't we give the town a chance to?
there's no financial impact on this.
It's already a time that has been accrued. I mean.
It depends on how the policy is,
It's an employee donating.
It
Yeah.
may have,
They already
it may
have.
have impact, absolutely.
it doesn't exist yet, so I'm not going to say anything
Because-
about it yet.
Because people are at different at different hourly rates.
Yeah.
And if they equally put it in, if somebody who's sick is at a higher rate than somebody who's given them time, and you have to hire somebody in the interim to fill in for that person who may be sick, then there is a financial impact.
It can get complicated because you have part-time, full-time people,
Now we got part-time A and B, and
Yeah, how much time do you put in to become a member? Is that relative to how much time, it gets complicated quickly.
Yeah.
But what's not complicated right now is the favoritism of one department does it if the department
Yeah.
head likes that employee,
Yeah.
and another department doesn't do it if they don't like that employee.
This is a
And-
huge issue in our town.
This,
Yeah, I mean, I know places where it's totally voluntary. It just people, they literally put up a
There-
note on the bulletin board, anybody want to donate? And they can only donate sick time, not vacation time.
This
So
is,
there are places that have it.
there are situations that have actually happened in the last couple of years where it is literally like department heads get to choose, you can do this and you can't, and there's no basis for how it's done. There's no commonality throughout the different departments, and it's like, you got one person that has cancer, why is it any different than this other person that has cancer? So
No,
this
I'm
one
on
person
board
gets
with
it and
having-
can't. Yeah, I'm just trying to
creating
like, this
something.
is something that is huge, and how we word it, I'm not sure.
But this article is
But-
not creating it, it's just committing
Right.
to create it.
It's adding language to the SAP, which authorizes us to create the policy.
Yeah, I think it should go back to town to be reviewed. I think, when we do have a final policy.
I mean, I think we already have, my comment is, we already have the authority to establish a policy for sick leave banks. So I want to be clear that that is very much so an executive function. It is very, in my view, it's very much so covered by our existing charge. But sometimes we have things that are in the charter that we just don't do, like performance evaluations. I mean, it is in the charter. And it's been there for what, almost 20 years. And we have yet to actually force a town manager to provide performance reviews for staff. That I think it is helpful and healthy that when we are not taking the actions we ought to take, for there to be something that compels us to do so. And we see it as well in the article that's coming from, that we all voted to approve, which is related from the APDC, when it comes to the Brooks House. They are compelling us to do something that's already in our authority to do.
They're not
just saying-
compelling us.
They're,
The language does not compel us.
They're suggesting
It
that
asks-
maybe we do
after
something.
after the rewrite.
Well, but it still says request, right? I
All right.
wouldn't go with shall,
Well, the original did not request.
so
but I didn't.
it's asking town meeting to ask us to do our job. And so if we want to, compel, ask, it's still saying from town meeting, the legislative body, select board, do this. And again, that article is something that's already in our authority. So to me, this is in the same vein. I think it's healthy to get the public engaged in this. And again, when we talk about why someone needs sick leave donated to them, it's because they have a serious illness. I mean, we're talking about someone who has cancer. I mean, we're talking about someone who has a serious physical injury that prevents them from coming into work for an extended period of time. I mean, this is when people are at the lows of their life. And what we're being asked to do here is to support the people who support us when they're in the lowest moment of their physical health.
I haven't heard
But we-
anyone on this board oppose
Right,
that.
I was about to
Everyone's
say that.
supporting
No,
that.
the opposition is in saying, we can do this in 6 months. So the person who gets cancer on November the 18th, sorry, too bad for you. The person who gets in a car accident and has a stroke, too bad for you if it happens in January. So it is saying no. Choosing to not put this before the voters as soon as humanly possible is actively saying, we simply don't care. We'll care tomorrow, we're caring 6 months, but today we don't. That's unacceptable.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask a question?
You may ask a question,
For
Carter.
those on any side of the issue, would folks agree that striking the last 5 lines,
So
starting with
that begin
such a program will be
Yeah.
voluntary,
Yeah,
would
that's
make
fine.
sense?
Yes.
It does make sense
As
to me.
step
Yes.
one, okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
All right. So we've had a lot of discussion on this article. Betty, you were going to say something?
So essentially, we could create this policy regardless of whether this was here or not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We can. But I do like the idea of having something in the SAP that
No,
explicitly.
I do too, I'm just
Yeah.
clarifying.
Yeah, we
for
can.
my own-
And we should.
But I mean,
So essentially, this gives the commitment,
Yes.
because I agree that this is something that we need to look into further, like, I wouldn't want to try to make an adjustment without fully vetting this policy.
Yeah,
But
I
I do
agree.
still support it being in here, because I know, again, this is something that across our employees has been brought up, and across our unions and across our non-union employees. So I think with that adjustment, I would support putting this in there, and it kind of holds us accountable to doing it.
All right, so where are we at?
You know, part of our charge, Mr. Chair, is, again, I will reiterate, we just had my colleagues say that I'd like it to be vetted more, but I'd like to include it in there. The whole point of vetting anything of this nature, especially of this size, and the changes it envisions, is a cycle of presentation, explanation, review, public input, recapitulation, changes, modifications, representation, right? That, like, we're doing that all in 45 minutes, which is, again, my objection is on that matter. Nobody, not enough people have seen this. People who are watching this tonight, you're scrolling up and down, there's nothing they can download to follow this. They're not going to get this until 2 weeks from now. And we're going to be asking to vote on this, something that has financial impacts, the wording is important, and the ramifications or unexpected consequences are important, and you won't know them until people get their eyes on it and say, wait, what about this? What about this to improve it? That is my objection. And I have to say, and it pains me to say it, but from a board who had a policy introduced and passed against their own policy in one evening, this conversation tonight doesn't surprise me. It just doesn't surprise me. There's no acknowledgement of why the process exists to begin with, and then honoring or respecting the process. It's not, I don't want it just to delay it. I want it because I want it to be right. I don't disagree, as one of my colleagues already said, that, you know, people are against this. I'm not against this. I'm not against anything in particular. What I'm saying is that I don't know how all these pieces fit together, and this has to be fit together very clearly like the gears of a machine. Otherwise, this could rankle everything. And if something's wrong that is wildly out of favor, try to pull benefits back, because that won't go over well either. So again, I just think that the way this is supposed to go isn't going that way.
Mr. Chair,
Yep.
I just wanted to comment back on that one. I know that, you know, that policy that you referenced was, I think this is a completely different situation in my opinion, and maybe it's because I've spent so much time and so many hours looking at the SAP that maybe I have a different opinion. But I think that at least bringing this forward, you know, we're not approving this tonight. We're bringing it forward to town meeting, and I understand the concern about the, you know, people not having that much time to review it. But people that are involved can take the time between now and town meeting to review it. I'm assuming we could get it, maybe we can ask the interim town manager to put it on the website once it's finalized, I'm assuming.
Once the proof
You know,
is available.
I think part of this is, it is important for people to be involved and take the time to review it, and then if they don't agree with it, then they can vote on it at town meeting. So, you know, I don't think this is the same situation as that prior policy vote that obviously, you know, was contentious and we've gone over ad nauseum. I still think that this is important, and I do respect the challenges with bringing it forward, but we're not approving it. We're just bringing it forward to town meeting for the people to vote on.
Yep, no, I hear you.
In a few moments, you'll be recommending it.
In terms of vetting, there are different levels of vetting that things in here require, right? The sick leave bank, yeah, that does require vetting in order for us to write a policy. But there's no policy in here. It's just stating, authorizing, even though it seems like we already have the authority to create that policy. So that's still to be done, and we will do
I
that.
think we've moved
Well,
beyond
In
that.
terms of
Yeah, well,
others,
that makes that part superfluous. Like, why are you putting in something that doesn't do anything except telling somebody you have to do something later?
because we're modifying the salary administration plan to include a section on the sick leave bank. You know, in terms of process, I just disagree with you that we're not following the process that we should be following. This is it happening as it should, in my opinion. We've had this entire month to read this warrant. You know, I think that's more than enough time for us to read through it. And, you know, I think there are a lot of things that have been considered, and I think the language in here is very thorough. Again, people with decades of experience wrote this in their professions. You know, I don't know. I have other things to say. One other thing I'll say, and, you know, with all due respect, truly, with all due respect, residents who receive the warrant in the mail, in my understanding and my observations, put the time and the effort to read through it and formulate opinions more so than maybe some of us do.
Yes, I'm a professional, and I thank you for the respect all of you show for the profession. But I will also point out that it was engineers that designed the catwalks in the Oklahoma Motel that fell down. So we're not perfect. I would like to suggest that I modify my request herein at 70-12A to make that an absolute stop block that the town administrator can't blow through. That we delete 70-12-1 at this point in time, but that we commit to addressing the accrual language issue for submission at the annual town meeting.
I'm sorry, I didn't follow that. Were you talking about the sick leave bank?
No,
70
no,
dash-
70-12-1, this recruitment incentives. I would
Seven-
like to suggest that we
Oh.
delete it in its entirety, but that we commit to addressing the accrual issue, which is the real heart of the matter. And if I might, and that we make the change that we talked about on the sick leave bank. I'd like to address why it's in here. Well, it's in here for two, might be three by the time I'm done, reasons. The first is to make it clear the authority under which the select board is acting in adopting the policy, so it's not open to question. Where did you get the authority to do that? The idea is to make it clear where the authority comes from. The other issue was, frankly, to give the employees a level of confidence it was going to happen. I had a union leader come in to say, and I think I shared this with you in an email, wow, you actually did what you said you were going to do. I'm not quite sure why he found that so surprising, but this was put in there primarily for that reason, to try to give the employees a level of confidence that we were committed to it, that it had a hard date, and we were going to get it done. And so that, I would leave the balance of the article for discussion with you with that explanation.
I'd like to reject that request. I think on the floor, I'm just having a really hard time seeing someone on the floor of town meeting standing up and defending why we should not provide employees any time off for 180 days. I don't think we are a community that is that callous. So I don't think that argument's going anywhere. I don't think that that most people sitting in the seats, when they think about their children, their grandchildren, who they help get through college and get a job, that they don't have an expectation that whatever job they get, that they're going to have to work 6 months without the ability to take a day off. I mean, so if someone wants to stand up on the floor of town meeting and make that argument, I encourage them to do so. But I think that we should include it in the request.
All right, so I want to thank the board for this robust discussion. Truly, it was very productive, but it seems like we've all made our minds at this point. Is there a motion to accept or recommend approval?
I move to accept Article 10 as modified.
Would that include the cap on the administrator's ability past step 4?
Yes, specifically the section about the step 4, and then that was also the deletion that we had discussed, and I'll call out that specific section. And I think it was 70-20-1, it was deleting everything after medical emergencies.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any additional discussion? Those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, no.
No,
The motion passes 4-1. Did I get that right? All right. That was Article 10.
That was the inclusion. I believe you've been taking separate votes on the recommendation.
Oh, was that? Oh, I'm sorry.
If I
Yeah, you're
understood
right.
what you've been doing so far.
My apologies. I was just about to ask if we did both motions. All right. Is there a motion to recommend approval?
I move to recommend approval of Article 10.
Second.
Any additional discussion? Those in favor?
Yes.
Go
I
ahead.
think it is important that by town meeting, to the town manager, that we have the complete estimate of financial impact.
We'll have that for Thursday evening with the Finance Committee.
Any additional discussion? Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no.
no,
I'm going to abstain pending the financial impact statement.
Any abstentions?
Yes.
The motion passes 3-1-1. All right, moving on to Article 11.
We're marking abstentions as recused. Is that agreeable?
no.
Abstain.
No, it's
There'll just
abstention.
be 3-1-1.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep. All right, Article 11. Carter, I'm sorry, I don't recall if you covered
I'm
this one as
prepared to
well.
withdraw Article 11. No, because we still have the sick leave and vacation leave for the part-timers. And I'm prepared to withdraw that one,
Why do you want to withdraw it?
Yeah.
because I want to try to be as harmonious and agreeable as possible, and I want to have as nominal debate over our employees on the town meeting floor as I can possibly have. And I believe that our employees will see good progress being made from this board by the submission of the first article, and that is why I am suggesting it. That said, I recognize it is the board's role. I propose, the board disposes, is one saying I've heard from a manager friend. It is capped at 2 weeks.
I personally am still in support of this article for the reasons I said in my statement. I guess I was talking about both of these articles before the separation. I think especially lettered under, where am I? 7018, letter G. I think that one is really important. I think you know, if you're gonna try to get employees that are already in the municipal sector that have experience, good luck having someone who has 5 weeks someplace else and they're capped at 2. I still think 3 is too low. But I think that this at least gets us a little bit closer to where we should be. So especially for that reason, I support including this to be voted on at town meeting.
I don't expect that there's going to be a lot of people from the public who are saying many things, a lot of opposition to either one of these, but I also support inclusion.
Can you just quickly hit the highlights of what's in 11, because there's a lot of changes that I think aren't
Sure.
substantial, you know, just.
So in simplest terms, it provides your part-time A employees, which you currently call intermittent, but they're regularly scheduled, they work up to 20 hours a week. It provides them with vacation, and it provides them with sick leave. We have proposed capping it at 2 weeks now, which I think is very reasonable for part-time employees. The larger issue is in paragraph G, which of the vacation section, which allows us, it says all persons, it's in the yellow, all persons employed by the town, except those in a classification of intermittent or seasonal, shall receive paid vacations in accord with the schedule, provided, however, that the town manager may award a new employee a higher accrual of vacation leave in recognition of the employee's qualifications and experience or market conditions, provided further that such initial accrual shall not exceed 3 weeks. So, and then it speaks to how that service date, if you will, does not qualify them for longevity and future increases in the accrual rate. So we get people you've hired, and if they're under contract, you've negotiated vacation with them. You have an employee who's been here less than a year, who you contracted with 3 weeks of vacation. You have an employee who has considerably more experience. You can't contract with them. They got 2 weeks of vacation. And so, in that case, the person was unemployed. But had they been employed and been at their 5 weeks of vacation with their other employer, and then told, well, no, you're going to start all over again at the bottom, and it's going to take you 15 or 16 years, I forget exactly how your grid, there's a point at which it's day by day by day. I think that there's a number of potential employees who are going to look at you and say, no, I'm not going back to the bottom of the pile to start all over again. And I shared with you the good fortune that I had in actually keeping an employee because the other town wouldn't do it. Now, there are some communities that are starting, and it's not an avalanche, but they're actually allowing an employee who has 15 years, 20 years, 25, to bring that full service forward. This at least lets us do a little bit more for the prospective employee, but caps the initial placement at 3 weeks. And so that's why we've done this as a recruitment tool.
Okay, and the other one regarding the part-time A employee, the sick and vacation leave, that doesn't address the accrual issue, does it?
It does not at this point in time. That is something you need to really take a look at between now and the town meeting. In my view, you simply let people start accruing time when they get here.
Yeah.
You let them start accruing, but you don't credit it to them for 6 months or until July 1, depending upon whether it's sick leave or vacation. That is, you really need to address that for both your prospective and your current employees that are of recent hire.
All right, so where are we at on this one?
You looking for a motion?
Or discussion?
I want to include it. I think it's pretty straightforward in terms of what the request is. I think it's well synchronized. You know, I think the interim town manager's request to withdraw it is out of concern for how much public debate there may be, but, you know, I think that the democratic process, even when contentious, is always healthy, just as the conversations tonight are healthy. You know, we have to get all the different views out into the public, and everyone, you know, is going to hold different viewpoints, and that's normal. And at the end of the day, we take votes and we go with the majority. And so, I mean, I think that getting the information from the public is good. I think it's a compelling argument for why we should do this. And, you know, if the public decides they don't want to do it, you know, for the part-time employees, that's up to them. I don't think that will's there. I think that most people want to have people working for the town who are highly qualified and feel valued in their employment. And I think that this better aligns us with showing our part-time employees as well that we value the work that they do. I mean, you know, we had, as a specific example, you know, we've had a lot of talk about the cemetery for a long time, and they depend upon part-time laborers. I mean, they depend upon that to get everything taken care of over the course of the year, and we've seen the impact when they don't have people in those roles. So, I mean, we also have a rec director in town who's a part-time employee. And this person's coordinating a whole lot of activities that every parent that's using them values and appreciates. I think it's just, you know, it's normal to say, we value you too. And we value you by showing that, hey, even though you're part-time, you're scheduled to work on a holiday, you'll get that holiday off. And, you know, if you need some time off, that appropriately, you know, you can actually accumulate some of that time off. And then these people who are part-time, 19 hours a week, they're not getting, you know, health care, right? They're not getting any other form of benefit from the town. And to be able to afford them a day off when they need it, because part-time employees, just like full-time employees, have life events that they need to attain to. And what it does is it forces people who are in these roles to have to decide between something critical that they need to accomplish and their job. And we shouldn't be putting people in that situation. So I support the request.
Yeah, I mean, my impression from annual town meeting when we were discussing the updates to the sick leave policy was that town meeting was very supportive of our employees. So, you know, that's at least my impression going into this. And if they decide to not be as supportive this time, that's their prerogative. You know, I think town meeting still should have the opportunity to vote on it. So I certainly support including it. I'm also supportive of the article as well.
If I know other members need to talk, I just want to comment. That's actually a really good example, because in that case, it was an employee who had an issue. They came to the town manager and they were denied. And then they reached out to elected officials, and we supported the employee with their reasonable request, and the town overwhelmingly supported it. And I think that just speaks to this change that we need to be undergoing, this forward direction that we're in, to show our employees that we value them. And it starts at the top. It starts with the town manager. It starts with this board. You know, I think this is a continuation of those good efforts.
Is there any, do you see any potential financial impact to this article?
It's loss of productivity, and we'll clean up that chart that we gave you so you can better understand that.
And you're going to go into the finance committee hearing with all of that this Thursday too, so they'll have a robust look at all of it, so.
I'm going to attend that physically. I don't think that Zoom's a good medium for me to have that discussion with the finance committee.
Right, so they have their due process as well. All right.
I will say that in general, their initial review was very supportive of these. That may change come Thursday night, but they have, for the most part, been supportive of these.
All right, is there any other discussion? Are there motions?
I move to accept Article 11 as presented.
Second.
Any additional discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no.
No.
The motion passes 4-1.
I move to recommend approval of Article 11.
Second.
Any additional discussion? Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no.
Aye.
No.
The motion passes 3-2.
Renee, was it no on that one?
I said an aye.
You said an
I was
aye.
late.
My apologies. All right, the motion passes 4-1. All right, moving on to Article 12.
Which I have numbered as 11 in
I-
whatever version
We didn't
I
know
have
what might
open.
happen up above, so
I see.
when we split them up, these will be renumbered, and they're all actually going to move down once we distribute the Legacy Article 1.
I forgot about that.
Yes. Yeah.
All right, so this one just needs a vote to accept.
I move to accept what is, we'll call it Article 11B. I move to accept 11B.
Second.
Any additional discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The motion passes unanimously. All right, Article 12, debt authorization for Marshall Park improvements. This is one submitted by the Parks Commission.
I think the Parks Commission has put a lot of work into this.
Can I ask a question? Are they going to have a presentation at town meeting?
So, yes, they certainly will have one at town meeting. I've been watching their meetings. I had a conversation with the chair as well, and I don't know if this is going to be included, honestly. This might get passed over, because a lot of this is still being worked on. So, I'm not sure exactly where it stands. That'll be a decision for the Parks Commission. I don't want to make that decision for them, quite frankly. So, yeah.
So in that case, would we accept the article but defer an opinion?
We could, or we could vote on it tonight. It's up to the board.
I can't vote on a recommendation without more information. I watched the last Parks, and I know there were a lot of questions. They were hoping to get more information and answers, and I don't know if that's happened. It's going to wait for the hearing on Thursday.
But we would still have to accept it as an article in order for it to move forward at all, correct?
Yes.
Accept and defer?
That's what I was proposing.
Selectman Jeffries.
I don't know. I'm gonna defer to the majority on this one.
Yeah.
I said previously I want to support this request.
Yep.
I don't know yet what the financial impact is fully. I'm expecting to know that on Thursday. I think in, a one-to-one conversation that I've had with a member of the community, there seemed to be some suggestion that this article may or may not be actually discussed at town meeting. I don't know. And so, if it's gonna, and the board hasn't taken, the Parks Commission has not voted to remove this. I know that, previously I've always been consistent in holding the view that, we can choose not to include things in this warrant. I don't know if it's prudent to bring this before the town yet, but I also don't want to step on the toes of the work of the Parks Commission. So I'm going to have to defer to the majority on this.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same situation, so. Selectman Alonso?
It's an elected commission. I never would vote to take away something from an elected commission.
So it sounds like the majority that wants to accept and defer. Okay, I'll vote with the majority.
All right, is there a motion?
I'll make a double motion. I move to accept Article 12 and defer recommendation to the floor of town meeting.
Second.
Any additional discussion? Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The motion passes unanimously. All right, and then Article 13, we cannot, well, I guess we're forced to vote to accept it, or do we just not vote?
I
No
believe.
vote.
No vote.
Yeah,
already
it's accepted.
All right, so is there a motion to defer?
I'm not going to make a motion to defer. I'm going to make a motion against. I move to for the board to recommend disapproval of Article 13.
Is there a second?
No second. I'll explain that. I don't think that it's appropriate for a citizen's petition
Yeah.
to come forward on $5.2 million. I don't think that process is acceptable. I think, we're talking about a substantial amount of money. I think that what the Parks Commissioners are doing is going through the process. I think it's an article that seems to catch up from another article. But I made a motion in a second and it wasn't there, so. I'll sit back and wait for another motion.
All right, is there a motion to defer?
Since it's the same thing as the one above it, I would say that we defer. I don't see, I
Second.
don't see any
Oh, is that a formal
substantive
motion?
difference. Yeah, it was a formal motion. Yeah,
Is there a
we-
second? Yep.
Second.
Any additional discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The motion passes unanimously.
And Mr. Chair,
yep.
Carter, I'll mention another article.
Yep. Yep, we're about to get
Okay.
there. Is that your copy?
It is.
Do we have?
All right, so I'm passing them down. Typically, what we do is we include an article at the beginning of a special town meeting, and I'll just read it. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, borrow, or transfer from available funds all sums of money necessary to amend the amounts voted for the town's FY 2024 budget under Article 7 of the May, well, I guess that part is.
We'll revise it to be the appropriate article and
Right.
dates, of course.
Or take any other action relative thereto. So basically, we have this standing article in special town meeting to amend the existing budget. So I guess we need to discuss whether or not that's necessary. I also, if possible, if I can get some information from other board members, why typically we've done this.
So my understanding, and Mr. Alonso, I'm asking for you to chime in here if I get any of this wrong. So my understanding is that, we need to, the way that the levy works and the borrowing and how much we can levy against the taxpayers is it's 2.5% max plus new growth. And I think we've always wanted to make the effort to preserve that we have affirmatively allocated that 2.5% and the new growth, and that there's often a slight difference between the new growth we estimate, it's a conservative estimate, versus the new growth that we actually received, and it gives the town the ability to appropriate those additional funds. I don't know if it's actually necessary, based on my understanding of how the levy actually works, whether we appropriate those funds or not. It's kind of irrelevant to whether or not we actually have the ability the following year to use that new growth number as the baseline with the 2.5% as the baseline. But I think we've been habited to do it, just to make sure we've crossed our Ts and dot our Is on this one. I don't have a conflict with continuing that pattern.
I don't either, but my understanding is, it's kind of like what you just said, right? That new growth number doesn't change, so going into the next budget, that's still there. Right, so I guess my question is, what exactly are we amending? What changes to the current budget do we make?
The new growth that would get confirmed, if it does get completed and affirmed,
Yep.
is for FY '25.
Yep.
Which means that when we pass the budget in May, this would add new money that was not available to be appropriated. If it is not appropriated, you cannot raise the taxes to that. So there would be a deficit in what you would be able to appropriate this year. So in this case, first of all, let's look at last year. Last year, we didn't levy to the limit because our new growth wasn't certified until after the first of the year, after the tax rate itself wasn't even done until Q1. So there was $230,000 that we didn't use last year. And you can't get that back. It's just not there. So this would be the same. My understanding is that we're expecting that if everything is certified as presented, we will see approximately, and it gets approximate number, of $150,000, that if we don't appropriate at this special town meeting, we will not have. And so we will be leaving $150,000 on the table for no reason other than we didn't have an article to put the money somewhere. Now, if it doesn't get certified by town meeting, then you have to pass over it because there's nothing to do. But if it does come in, then you need to put it somewhere and appropriate it somewhere in some fund, in some line item, so that when you set the tax rate, that is the complete levy.
Carter, what's your take on this?
There's, first it's 115,000, I just.
15, sorry.
Yeah, no, I just want to make sure we're on common ground. Certainly appropriating an additional 115,000 to your FY '25 budget is one way to address it. I'm not sure what department would get it, what it would be for. I think that's something the board would need to decide. there's another way to deal with it, and I'll try to make that presentation to you at November 4, so you can make a decision as to the best way to go forward. And that's in using the tax rate setting recap sheet. But this is a legacy article, and I wasn't aware of it, and I'd like to include it.
Yeah, I mean, every department, I mean, you know, the funds are gonna roll in anyway, right? I mean, that's the thing. It's not like we're not collecting the money, we are. It's just, can
No,
we do anything?
we're not collecting the money. That's the point.
Well, I hope to make a presentation that will,
I thought we were collecting, we just can't appropriate it.
Nope.
Am I incorrect on that one?
You can appropriate it, but my understanding is
I'm
when
saying
you-
the absence of this, when we just talked about
you
leaving
can't
money on the
spend it.
table.
You can raise it
Right,
through the mechanism of the tax recap sheet.
because
But
that
you
new growth
can't-
number doesn't
But you
change
can't spend it unless you increase the budget.
until you get to FY '26.
That's another whole year. That's a different, you're not recouping that. Obviously, the new growth rolls over into the next year, sure.
Right.
But that's not the same as this year.
No, you're right, I understand that, I just wanted to first clarify that distinction. But I guess now I'm curious, like, what are we gonna appropriate it for
Put
this
it in
year?
a stabilization fund, you can put it in a reserve fund, you can put it in a salary reserve fund.
Yeah.
You can put it into anything.
Right. I'm not opposed to it at all, really, so.
Or we can evenly distribute it across departments by percentage. I'm sure the school committee won't complain about getting 50% of
Well,
115,000.
that would be a hell of an article to read. Because you'd have to mention every line item. I don't think you want to do that.
No.
Well, I think step one is
To include it?
to include it.
Yes.
What do we call on this then? I mean.
Well, where do we want to put it?
First.
We want to put it first, so.
That's where it's historically been.
Yeah.
Do we have to have in the article where it's going? Because this was from 2023, and I think at special town meeting last year, we definitely didn't have the certified new growth.
We pass it over.
But do we have to have that it's going? I thought I saw in a previous 2022, maybe that it, did we call out a stabilization fund? Or something?
This is exactly how it was worded.
Yeah,
In
last
23,
November. 23 was such a weird
22,
year. 22 is the
And
same?
21, I pulled,
Okay.
I pulled 3 once I was alerted that this
Okay.
was a legacy article.
So when do we
I
say
think this
where
would
it goes?
usually be like one of those pink sheets that shows what that day, it would be a handout to show people what we're doing with that article.
So even if it's not in the wording of the article, you could have that separately, where that money's going?
Yeah,
Well, that's in your motion, you can, so the article gives you broad authority. In fact, it's even
Very
suggesting
broad.
you might borrow money,
Yeah.
which you
well, again, I
can't
would
do for the
remove,
operating
I would
budget.
remove that.
Yeah. I know, this is like one of the vaguest articles.
I think by format, we've tended to keep the budget-related stuff at the
the
very
beginning,
beginning
yeah.
of the article, and then usually the things that bring out the voters at the end. But for the purpose of making a motion, what are we going to call this? Because we already have an Article 1, so what are we going to call this?
I would just say
A?
Article 1 from the special town meeting warrant of 2023 to insert it as the new Article 1 in the current warrant or something like that.
And renumber the,
Yeah, just renumber everything.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, my remaining question is wordsmithing. Do we need to discuss the wording of it tonight if we're changing any of it?
Is this going to the printer tomorrow?
That was the hope.
That's what I thought.
This is exactly how you've worded it.
Yeah, I know, we just have to change the dates and the
Yeah.
FY.
We just have to change the dates. I hope to make a presentation to you on November 4 that will clarify another means of accomplishing what you're suggesting.
Okay.
But I don't see the need to change it at this point.
Right. All right, so I would accept a motion to, basically what I said, taking this article from this warrant, putting it in as the new Article 1 in the current warrant, and then, I don't know, authorizing the town manager to update the article and date for the relevant town meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Any additional discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The motion passes unanimously. Do we vote to accept it?
That was, They
We just
accepted
added it, so I'm assuming that accepted
yeah.
because we just voted to add it.
True, sorry, we're getting close to 10 o'clock now.
And no recommendation, so is that just to defer? Should I make a
Yeah,
motion to
that
defer?
would be to defer.
I move for the board to defer the article we just accepted.
Second.
Any additional discussion? Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The motion passes unanimously.
May I speak to schedule?
You may speak to schedule.
So the intent is to get this all cleaned up first thing in the morning, that's our priority. Do one final proofreading, run it past town council, give them an opportunity to have 4 minutes to burn through it if they, 4 minutes, 4 hours to burn. Actually, at their hourly rates, I hope it is only 4 minutes. And then to have it to the printer at the end of the day tomorrow. We will get it out to you for a final look-see so you understand exactly. And then as soon as we get that the next day, to let you know that the signature page is ready for wet ink signatures here in the office. And you'd have the full book, the table of contents, the letter from the chair on volunteers, the zoning maps, some finance terms, things like that.
When do you anticipate needing our signature? Did you say Thursday?
Thursday,
I'm not gonna be,
Friday,
I'm not home. Friday, town
Saturday,
office
Sunday,
isn't
and
open.
Monday.
Town
Well-
hall's not- Yeah.
We'll make it work. I mean, we will,
We'll figure it out.
if we need to, we'll get them hand-delivered to you over the week. I mean, we'll work it out.
All right, cool. Any questions or comments about the timeline process moving forward? All right, sounds good. Thank you, everyone, for the robust participation tonight. All right, moving on, discussion on annual climate survey policy, and what's the next one? Discussion on select board and town manager goal-setting process. I don't have anything for that tonight. We'll pick that up in November. And moving on to minutes, warrants, and action items. So I only reviewed one set of warrants. I only see, excuse me, minutes, and there's only one set of minutes in the drive. It's from the executive session from October 8th. So I reviewed them. Have other members had an opportunity to read through it?
Yes.
I did review it, but where did we land on voting on these if we're not there? Did we, I know we talked about this last week.
Right.
There's nothing precluding you officially from voting on them.
Yeah, I guess it's up to you.
It's really up to you.
It's up to you.
Sometimes it's needed for
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
if it's
for the
not
vote.
needed, I won't vote since
Yeah.
I wasn't there, but I did review
Move
them.
that
and
we
they look
approve
fine.
the executive session minutes of October 8th, 2024.
Second.
Any additional discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Any abstentions?
abstain.
Abstain.
Motion passes 3-0-2. All right, warrants. Do we have any warrants? Doesn't look like we do.
No, we do not.
All right. Action items. Not hearing any. So we'll move on to committee reports.
Budget Task Force met last night. We had, let's see, what did we discuss? A lot about the healthcare plan and options. Discussed the points that our chair, Tony Scolambrini Jr., and Ezzy will be presenting at special town meeting. And our next meeting is November 4th. And school committee has met since our last meeting. They discussed where the additional Chapter 70 funds were going. We already covered that tonight. And they also received 7 responses to the Turkey Hill ADA study. So that is moving along. And that is all I have. Oh, stormwater meets tomorrow. Thursday, sorry, Thursday.
I have a question for Selectman Imke.
Yeah.
So I know that at one of the previous meetings with the Budget Task Force, and I made a comment about it, but I didn't end up making a public comment. There was a question about, the tax classification. Mm-hmm. So what I just wanted to offer is something for you guys to look at, is, when I did this analysis a year or so ago, every community between Air and Gardner, north of Route 2, is a single tax rate, including Fitchburg and Leominster. And I think that, working in the regional kind of collaborative group, that one of, I think, the points is that the benefit of investing in north central Massachusetts is that, you're going to have similar taxes no matter what community you're in, and that keeps us all competitive. And so, what we see in the communities that have divided tax rates in which, and normally when it's divided, the tax rate on the businesses doubles, is usually double the residential rate. That usually what you see in the communities that have that are where there are intersections and a lot of junctions. So like Air, as an example, like has train tracks, you have a lot of roads that meet, same deal in Gardner. And so those are places where businesses want to be, because it allows them to, you're in Air, you can be in Lowell in 10, 15 minutes, you can be in Worcester in 25 minutes, you can be in Boston in a quicker time. And so I would just offer that as we look, if the committee is looking at, making a recommendation one way or the other, to take a look at the region. Even go south of Route 2, look at Lancaster, some of the other communities. And I think what you'll see is a commonality there amongst communities in north central Mass to try to make it equal opportunity for businesses. And my concern is that if we become the outlier, if we become the one town that doesn't have all those intersections, all those train tracks, and all those roads, but we have a double tax rate, that we will lose businesses as a result.
So I've been watching the meeting. It's my understanding that you guys haven't taken an actual position on it. You guys
No, we
just
discussed it because it came up when we looked at Maynard, which has a lot of similarities. It's like if you took Lunenburg and just squeezed
Shrunk it
it
down.
to smaller footprint, they actually have a split tax rate, and they have had it for, going back to 2003, as far as I can see in DLS. So actually, I think Linda, and is Brian coming on the 4th? As he invited some folks from the assessors department to give a presentation at our next meeting, so.
Yeah. I have opinions on that too, but I'll save it for another time.
The intent is, everything is on the table.
Yeah.
Assume nothing, evaluate everything, and that is one, so.
Right. Selectman Alonso.
Capital Planning met yesterday, where we got a presentation from the schools over their 10-year capital plan. We meet tomorrow, where we will, I can't remember who we're hearing from, because all my meetings are melding into one. But we are meeting tomorrow at the Ritter for another presentation.
The Economic Development Committee was supposed to meet Thursday, but I don't see an agenda, so I'm not sure what's happening there, when that's going to be rescheduled to. And the Master Plan Steering Committee still has no meeting. There is no chair after the chair stepped down, so I'm not sure what needs to happen in order to reorganize so that that committee can start meeting again, because it is a large committee in order to meet, so I don't know
Which
how we
committee is that?
move that forward. The
Master Plan Steering Committee.
You
I know
there was a
this-
hiatus over the summer,
Right, right.
and
Yeah.
then they were supposed to meet in October, but there is no chair, so the committee needs to be
Reorganized,
reorganized. So I'm not sure how we get that moving, but currently there is no movement on
Chris had
that.
reached out to the consultant, trying to get him in here, and I'll connect with Chris tomorrow and let you know.
Okay.
I don't see any reason why the staff couldn't call that meeting. And then,
I'm happy to help in whatever
and
way I
then,
can.
you'll reorganize and be back on your way.
Okay,
So we'll
great.
get you an answer by the end of the day tomorrow.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I forgot that FinCom has their public hearing for the warrant on Thursday, this Thursday here.
Yep.
Library trustees met last Thursday. A couple highlights coming out of that. Just first, they wanted to extend a lot of kudos to Muir and the staff, that they have noted a pretty good increase in usership with the library and the programming that they're offering. And so, year over year, it seems as if participation in the library is up and their Friday openings have been successful. So they just wanted to share that. As Carter mentioned, the RFP that's out, it's due on the 4th, and they are excited related to the teen room, and they're excited to move forward on that. I did speak with the chair of the Sewer Commission about the lack of meetings since the summer, and when they plan on having their next meeting. She indicated that, that they are looking to meet for sure in the month of November. I did encourage a meeting this month, if at all possible, and I think based on membership availability and other factors, that it does not appear as if the two remaining members of the committee are going to be able to meet this month.
Is that the sewer commission?
I
or-
meant to say cemetery.
Okay.
Thank you. I meant to say cemetery.
We have
Thank you.
the sewer commission fully
Yep,
staffed
so
now.
cemeteries, yeah, I meant to say cemetery. Thank you.
So the cemetery commission, I had a conversation as well with town clerk and the chair, and they're scheduled for November 21st.
Correct.
However, there hasn't been an agenda shared, which is why it's not on the town website, but it is scheduled for that.
Correct. The other report that I had is Municipal Building Design Committee that we met last night, and we, in the RFP process, there's usually an opportunity for questions to be asked by people who have received the plans, also known as the plan holders. And so we've had a lot of good responses to the RFP. The questions were pretty straightforward and I thought pretty simple, but we did review them last night and came up with answers. So I'll meet up with Julie tomorrow. We'll go over that response so that way it can be published on Thursday. One of the requests that came out of it was there was some interest in an optional site visit. Mr. Ruth expressed interest in hosting that, so I need to coordinate with him on the date, but we did target next Monday or Tuesday for that and to provide that as an option. So we'll get that addendum out. It needs to go out Thursday. And so working with Julie, we'll make sure that that gets out. Also, the Municipal Building Design Committee, we recognize that we need to re-socialize a lot of the work that we've been doing since we were literally picking up where we left off. And so over the coming months, we are looking to meet with the planning board. We're looking to meet with the select board, the school committee, council of aging, and we are on the agenda for the finance committee this Thursday to provide an update related to our update article. And only other thing is planning board. So we have a request, and it's a soft request, a soft inquiry at this point from a developer that's looking to do some development, residential development here in town, focused on assisting in the town and hitting its minimum 10% affordable housing limit, which we're, a little less than 20 units away from, I believe. And so I do have a soft meeting that I'm targeting to schedule. Mr. Brenner has already consented to it. We're looking to reach out with the land use director and just kind of have that initial conversation, and then I think the product will then get passed off, whatever it's going to be, to the planning board. So just wanted to give the board updates on those areas.
All right. I don't have a committee report. None of my committees have met in the past week. Upcoming meetings. We are meeting November 5th and then November 12th, a special town meeting, again, 7 p.m. at the Middle High School auditorium. And public comment. Are there any public comments from the interim town manager?
None, Mr. Chairman.
Are there any public comments from the public? Mr. Bowen, I might have to, hold on one second. I think I have to ask you to unmute. All right. We can hear you.
Okay, hi, how are you all? So I just wanted to follow up. I noticed that there was a lot of discussion on the warrant articles and so forth with regard to employees, and as you know, I had raised that issue earlier, and I wanted to give some clarification to the community regarding the litigation between Chairwoman Foss-Yasko and Todd Holman is going to be at her expense and not at the town. As for a settlement or a trial on that particular tort of defamation, it'll be dependent, obviously, upon depositions, which could lead to town involvement and additional persons being added, or the town itself, by persons' personal statements that they make in depositions, have those depositions come about if people start pointing fingers. I just wanted to make that clear, that the town lawyer is no one's lawyer. I have an email from him with regard to what his specific function is within the town, and he has informed me that he works with the town manager and select board, mostly related in town matters. Inadvertently elected and appointed persons, they do not have his services at their disposal. So I hope people will take note of that when they run for office or they run for appointments, so that they're clear in understanding that you're still a person who is personally responsible for what you say and what you do. Also, to follow up, I will be meeting with the Finance Committee this week with a public comment because I reviewed the Cemetery Commission's books. Thank you, Ezekiel, for the information, because I will be speaking with the Finance Committee directly on a couple of issues, particularly on the spending of the funds from the sale of lots account, as well as, I mean, there's spending that goes on in the trust funds that belong to specific families. However, that has nothing to do with what I plan on speaking about. But I did find recently $7,500 of wasted spending. I found a $3,500 wasted spending on a grass cutting survey. Even though the commission was informed by the superintendent and the DPW director of hours to cut the grass. My understanding was they hired a landscape company to come in on their own without clearing it with the DPW, and they booked that company without first that consultation with DPW to allow them to work in our cemeteries. That particular activity was actually an attack against our cemetery superintendent and DPW director. Prior to that, the cemetery superintendent was called a liar, and Bill Bernard was also told, and this is all on recorded meetings, he was told he didn't know how to manage the DPW by the chairwoman. Now, this was there was also another expenditure of $1,400 spent on engraving a former board member's bench on his private family plot, paid for with money that we allot on a town warrant article of $10,000. Okay, that's patronage giving. There was also another roughly $1,800 or so spent on news advertising and display boards for a wall presentation for the North Cemetery, which there is no particular plan for anything because this committee has no plan financially, is spending money that we give them willy-nilly, and they say that's our money, just listen to their meetings. Okay? They do not have a formulated business plan or direction or balance sheet, at least outlining a minimum of a 5-year plan and cost calculation on the care and upkeep and upgrade of our cemetery. This has to stop. As I said, I am just touching the surface of the plethora of negligent acts done by this board over the last 2 years. Now, I have recommended a cemetery corporation. I have been dismissed by Ms. Yasko and Mr. Doran as a result of looking into something like that, but this is the best and fiscally most responsible direction for the care of the dead and their families, okay, in our cemeteries, okay? It's time for a new direction, a new line of fiscal responsibility, a new line of proper attitude, not like screaming at citizens at town meeting like she did with me, or calling the police on residents like she did with Highland Farm for a dog in the cemetery, or me for expressing my concerns as I have been for over the last year with this board and other boards and their boards. I say we fire Nancy Yasko and Dave Doran, and that's what this town has to do, and let's just make our cemeteries great again. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bowen. Are there any other public comments from the public? Sue? I think you still have to unmute.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you.
Okay, good. Sue Doherty, the director at the Lunenburg Council on Aging. I just want to say that I really want to thank the interim town manager, the assistant town manager, and the Board of Selectmen for bringing forward the issue of the part-time employees for vacation time, holiday pay, sick time, sick bank, etc. I wish this was done 30 years ago when I first started working for the town. I think it's really a good thing because it's obvious that it's frowned upon to not hire people for under 30 hours a week because of benefits and whatnot. And that has interfered with me hiring people because they can't get benefits, or they can't at least get vacation time or a little bit of sick time. So I really want to thank them, and I hope that people come out and support this. Does it need a little tweaking? It might, but I think it's a great start, and I just wanted to say that. And thank you.
Thank you, Sue. All right. Any public comments from the board? Hearing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second.
Any additional discussion? Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The motion passes unanimously. It is 10:13 PM. The Select Board is adjourned. Thank you, everyone at home, for tuning in tonight, and we will see you in November.
Recording stopped.